There's nothing quite like it. Totally beguiling, totally beautiful. Rolling hills, the greens, the various shades of green, and buzz of insects, the hum of bees, butterflies dancing, birds chirping in the hedgerows, just entrancing. And rivers that wind through the fields, leaving oxbow lakes sometimes, and the fish come up to grab a fly. No day was average because they were all so different, really. In an English country village, you think of picnics really, and summer teas, and spreading the travelling rug on the ground, opening the hamper. And there's this hazy purple in the distance, which is, I suppose you do get it in Scotland, but it's particularly amazing in the south of England. Summer.
Isn't it terrific?
I don't know that one had a plan, because each day simply unfolded, and magic just happened really, I suppose. I suppose you could call it rather quaint, really. But I am deeply glad to have been born an Englishman. I've travelled a lot, all over the continent, of course, no further than that. But somehow one's always so glad to come home. To this blessed land. On a wonderful summer's night.
lot of new bands like the Beatles and the Beatles and whoever. Anyhow, someone tell me, where is England? I gotta go there someday.
Well, I think we're live. That was some beautiful music. Afterwards in the recording, this probably will get cut out, but live is indeed a beautiful thing. I think it's Gregor who made that playlist, so thank you for that. Hello and welcome. My name is Michel Pleur and I will be your host for this afternoon. Swarm Live is the last release before we launch on mainnet. So the next time we see each other, it will be to announce the release of Swarm 1.0. But let's not get ahead of ourselves and focus on this release. Although it has all the high-level features of 1.0, there's still a lot of debugging, testing, and cleaning up going on. So in this event, we want to focus on explaining what Swarm is, why it is needed in today's world, and how you can join Swarm in writing the future of the internet. We have really cool demos and some very exciting announcements, as always. And this event will be around 2 hours, approximately, this time. So sit back and enjoy the program. To start things off, we have, again, a really cool and interesting and inspirational opening talk. Scott Bybin is a creative technologist, an environmental activist, an inventor, and an entrepreneur. He is the co-creator of the Mandelbot HAB, a 3D printer for eco-construction, and co-founder, curator, and director of strategy. Wow. He is the co-founder, curator, and director of strategy at Evil Twin Booking, where he represents a diverse range of speakers, such as Chelsea Manning, Boots Riley, Alex Gray, and Glenn Greenwald. In other words, he's representing a lot of my personal heroes. So, without further ado, I would love to present to you Scott Bybin. Scott, are you here? Okay, we don't have Scott, so we will get back with Scott once we have him. Instead, we will go with our second speaker. Yesterday, I had an amazingly interesting conversation with Victor Stron, and we have made an edit out of that, and we would like to show that to you right now. So, Gasper, please take it away with the recording we made of Victor. So, Victor, the first question I wanted to ask is following. So imagine that it is 2030, like almost like 10 years from now, right? And so I wake up in my bed and I always grab my phone and I start checking my messages and I start, checking, crypto prices and work and if someone added some documents. And so my question, I guess, would be like, if Swarm and other decentralized technologies really become mainstream, like what would be the biggest difference in my daily use of digital devices and the internet?
Well, I would love to say, first of all, your feeling of security and transparency of what's happening. I hope that would change massively. In terms of actual user experience, I mean, you can always say, like, some people say we already had everything in the 13th century. What's all this about? Like newer, shinier devices and what to what end to make things more and more complex? But here is how the world goes. technologies which further improves our condition of life, further improves the effort we put into work, and in particular Swarm, to answer the question, probably Swarm will host and empower a lot of basic productivity tools relating to everyday life, all the way from search to marketplaces, which are going to be much smoother and kind of as if a magic wand by a fairy basically matches your desires to people or businesses that execute that. It's basically the time when I envisage the end of advertising as such, where advertising will be much more honest, in the sense that advertising is about creating identities, is about me boasting that I'm using this and this platform because it's cool and that makes me cool as well, rather than implicitly thinking that advertising is about choice of functionality in things. It's a matter of taste, which is the only real variable that advertising or branding in any way can influence.
So Swarm, you said in the past that Swarm is like BitTorrent on steroids, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, but isn't this then opening up, like, with the iTunes store around, I think 2000, something like that, we basically, the society could rule out like piracy, right? Like, because it became so cheap for people to buy a song that it's not even, for most people, it's not worth it to go to the Pirate Bay or use a sort of a Napster thing. Is Swarm going to start a new Napsterian revolution where piracy will become profitable?
Very good question. Very good question. So indeed, it's kind of a funny outcome. First of all, let's revolve this story like that. When I explained that the story is basically BitTorrent on steroids, I kind of naively assumed that everyone in their right mind knows about BitTorrent, but exactly as you say, because of the iTunes and Netflixes, watching this content in actually prime quality became affordable by most, which means that BitTorrent is kind of less relevant in getting this content, and therefore the piracy question is kind of relegated to the niches. But yeah, indeed, the promise of the real solution is, of course, the fact still remains that these middlemen, like for example the Spotify's and other platforms, they charge extremely large amounts for their mediation services, and therefore it creates a big cut for those providing the creative content. And if we provide a system in which this mediation is converges to the marginal cost, then it's going to be actual saving for both the end user and the content producer. So ultimately, I believe that maybe even in the face of cheap alternatives, which definitely provides such a honestly better UI at this point, that it will for long remain the dominant solution. But I think because of the cheaper, the disintermediation of this rent-seeking middle layer is basically going to be ultimately used because it's way more economic and creates a direct relationship between producer and user. And most interestingly, say the pirate who used to be relegated in the realms of a legally gray area, because copyright infringement, most of all. There's a chance now that they can be transparently and provably made part of the supply chain economy for say media or creative content distribution. So basically, the pirate can be incentivized to take part in the same economy and play the rewarded role of this content distributor. And if we provide these kind of economic systems which is made possible by having the same underlying infrastructure for storage, content delivery, and contracting. So basically, the blockchain. Mm-hmm. It's possible to come full circle and include all participants in this game. And again, this allows for some extra players to be disintermediated. So, for example, some of the marketing will be made obsolete by this, which again leads to a further reduction of cost in the whole economic subsystem.
Yeah. So another thing I'm trying to wrap my head around is so right now in the current economy, you could say that it is the content that sets the price, right? If there's like a piece of music that is, well, maybe not with music, but let's say an artwork, like a painting, like depending on who did it and what is on it, the price will be set. But if I look at Swarm and the incentive model and how I try to understand how it works, it seems like content is not really important, but it is about like the data going through your node. So how is that valued, right? Why will some pieces of content will be more expensive, let's say, or earn you more money than others? Like, can you explain that?
Yeah, well, yes and no. It's in a way I can explain. I can put some thoughts on it, but it's less related to Swarm than you think. So first of all, what you alluded to in terms of the data transfer? Yes. So the basic fabric of Swarm is basically data. It's bits floating around. And on this level of providing basic infrastructure, we don't even want to in any way take into account content in the substantive sense of what the content is, only in terms of the number of bytes and the actual bytes. What this means is that let's say the best analogy is the electricity grid or say the water pipelines, the running water pipelines in urban areas, which kind of is neutral to what substance and what type of water you run through it. It allows for the smooth and efficient transfer of that and then control of the supply. In that sense, of course, as since Swarm is built on natural incentives, which means that the incentives are taken to exactly where the cost is produced. So directly the bandwidth use of as the messages are passed between nodes are actually accounted locally in a peer local accounting, tit for tat accounting, like who gives what. And your question about how this can be extended to the system where the value is attached to the content. This is a very hard question because on the one hand, in the digital realm we're talking about content which is replicable. It's not like Picasso's painting, which there's only one of. The moment that the Picasso's painting becomes digital, is the same no matter which digital copy you use, and therefore all the economics that relate to single non-copyable instances of objects, artwork. It's kind of loses meaning in this realm. The closest you get to this is non-fungible tokens, so basically tokens which represent a unique something. But these have to be either arbitrarily linked or by convention linked to the original object, which means that, for example, you can have an auction site on Swarm, and you can auction with these non-fungible tokens, which are by some standard linked to art objects. However, in this case, the real value of these tokens would be although negotiated and operatively handled through the technology. The values are not given by behaviors of this token, but by the behaviors and the desirability or it a demand for the art objects that they relate to, or so you would think. That's actually very interesting middle cases. But so in general, I think that this kind of object, like unique object values, they might be represented on crypto and digital systems, but their price setting mechanism is not related to this distribution mechanism. On the other hand, let's talk about general, like for example, content which makes sense in digitally, like for example, song. If you believe that there's genuine value in listening to a song, even if you're not listening to one particular performance of that by a particular band. So let's say we produce digital recordings of our music. How is that? How does that get the value? Because your question still applies to this kind of scenarios, which we still I would imagine they would be differently priced or differently valued. At least my composition is certainly never going to be as valuable as a Madonna song, and in some sense. And the answer to this is that it's difficult to imagine that somehow the price setting mechanism is following the ease, or the is kind of relates to scarcity, because since copying the digital content or media, or actually listening to it twice, even without copying, because just you might listen to from a small repository of like, and beam it directly to your media player, means that you might not even save it to your device. So consuming the same content is actually in any way making that content scarcer, and therefore it's difficult to imagine that you attach value to it through scarcity. So ultimately, I believe that license-based or kind of use-based pricing of this creative content is only justified in terms of the infrastructure cost it causes. So when I download stuff, people for packages towards me, and that should be paid through Swan. But for the content, different monetization models should be invented, which allow different of how content creators are rewarded or even incentivized to produce creative content in the first place. I think copyright or licensing models are eminently inadequate to do this.
Maybe a follow-up question on that, and I think it also will explain a little bit technically how the Swarm node works. But if I'm running a Swarm node, how can I make sure there's no like illegal stuff going through my node? I know this has been, this has been a question I remember with IPFS, for instance. I remember when we set up IPFS nodes, where then we said like, yeah, but what if someone, puts like, whatever is illegal in the places where you live, of course, right? So how will I make sure that my node is not keeping like data that is illegal in my country?
Okay, so of course there's two answers to this depending on what's your motivation. So if your motivation is to avoid legal recourse or prosecution for potentially doing something illegally in the eyes of your jurisdiction, then the answer is yes. Swarm can make sure that your the content that you store as store node is not only not known by you, but even cannot be known by you in some strong formalizable ways. This approach is in general this question is usually discussed in the context of plausible deniability. Which means that you have.
Let's maybe pause a little bit on that, because it's of course a big concept. It means that I can prove that I don't know, or that I cannot know what is happening on my device.
You can plausibly deny being a culprit in wrongdoing. And however, we have to acknowledge that plausible deniability in the jurisdiction, in legal context, is not so much a matter of technological solution. If your powers to be have enough resources and you make it worthwhile for them to prosecute you, they're probably gonna somehow prove their right. If they have a way to that you can you somehow access material that they deem illegal is probably not so much of a technological question. However, SWAN does this all it can technologically to prevent this circumstance by using encryption by default, doing a chunkwise distribution of load balanced chunkwise distribution of pieces of the document, which means that one particular storage node is very extremely unlikely to have the complete content that's needed. And in fact, we have a even stronger deniability proposition, which is based on the idea of basically XORing different blocks, which basically means that if you have a piece of content that is needed to reconstruct some questionable material, then the very same piece of content can also be used for reconstructing or assembling or uncontroversial, undebated content, which means this is the technologically the strongest possible ability actually construct a counterexample your data being used in uncontroversial content recovery. Now maybe I have to mention the side of the coin, which is the ethical commission. So if you ethically or morally genuinely concerned about what data you store, because you might have the conviction that some data is bad and should not be stored, then we have much less to say to you. But what I can say is that any instance where you can genuinely say that some content is controversial is relates to actually retrieving it and indexing it, and in general that's a conscious deed by whoever does it. So it's not really so much a store node that contributes to its dissemination. And in the larger scheme of things, I think in terms of the social impact, which one I think it's extremely important that base layer infrastructure should be value neutral. And this is because any outright measure of censorship which we might support from the beginning, will almost like by natural law, it's going to be over applied, and it's always leads to unwanted or suboptimal censorship and restrictions. And this might sound controversial to some, but just don't forget that in the world there's awful lot more orders of magnitude more problems with stemming from a breach of freedom of speech, rather than any harm coming from content being there which someone thinks shouldn't be there.
So Victor, as always, I want to thank you for these wonderful insights, and I think we touched on really interesting topics, and I would love to continue the conversation, but we will definitely do that once Corona is over and we all have been vaccinated, I guess. So yeah, Victor, thank you so much. I hope to see you very soon.
Thank you for the opportunity, Michelle. It was lovely to talk to you. Thank you.
So yes, thank you, Victor and Michelle from the past. Our next speaker was actually the previous speaker, but he had some technical problems. So let's try this again. He is a creative technologist, an environmental activist, inventor and entrepreneur. He is also the co-creator of the Mandelbot HAB, a 3D printer for eco-construction. He is the co-founder, curator, and director of strategy at Evil Twin Booking, where he represents a diverse range of speakers and some of my personal heroes, such as Chelsea Manning, Boots Riley, Alex Gray, and Glenn Greenwald. Dear friends, welcome Scott Bybin. Hello, Scott. I see your technical worries are over, so I'll leave it up to you. So Scott, please go ahead and do your thing.
Hi, I wanted to thank you so much for hosting me. Huge thanks to Swarm, I guess, for having me as a speaker today. And apologies for the technical difficulties that I was having a little earlier. So I wanted to take this opportunity to speak a little bit about the importance of both privacy as well as the freedom to share data in free societies, and to have the type of world that where we don't have to worry about censorship that much. So nowadays, there are a lot of people who are at risk in areas of the world where there are repressive governments. And so privacy technologies are very useful for artists, activists, and other creators because it gives them a chance to communicate as well as to workshop ideas in a safe space. One of the things that I've found pretty important in doing the work with Evil Twin Booking is that a lot of the people we work with are, I guess they're kind of controversial in their own ways. They are people who basically live out a lot of their ideals, and sometimes they create some problems in the in the realms that they're operating in. Like people like Glenn Greenwald, who is a person who speaks his mind very freely and shares a lot of ideas that are not necessarily popular, but are ideas that are important to get out into the world. He puts a lot of effort into exposing corruption. And then you have people like Chelsea Manning. Chelsea is a whistleblower from the United States, if you're not familiar, and she revealed a lot of things that were happening in military intervention in other parts of the world, and she wound up going to prison for many years. And she was her sentence was commuted by President Obama, and she came out and started to speak about the importance of freedom in in terms of speech, and then you have other people that we work with that we try to provide a platform for. People who are artists, who are working in the realms of maybe psychedelic culture, people like Alex Gray or Rick Doblin, who are addressing the, cognitive liberties that we have in creativity. So this has been very, very important to me for a long time. I'll give you a little bit of background of where I come from. So back in the days when I was in college in the mid 90s, I was on a bunch of different listservs for, I guess you could call them cypherpunk listservs, and was very interested in cryptography as a way for activists to be able to communicate. So I was paying very close attention to some of these different groups, and I was exposed to a whole world of things that I had not previously known about. Things like everything from learning about the Clipper chip, which was a piece of technology that was used for surveillance, to cultural things like Burning Man, and then other things that were just this entire world opened up to me from using the internet that at that point in time. And I was incredibly grateful that I was exposed to so many different things. And while I was being exposed to this stuff, I was also made very aware that this was a very fragile and precious thing. That it was through the efforts of a lot of different people that I could even access this information at the time, which I could learn from. And these are the things that inspired and influenced me through all the things that I would come to do in my life later. So I learned about encryption at that point. I learned about PGP and very early in encryption schema, and this is one of the things that also opened me up to a lot of different people doing research, and both academic and hobbyist researchers who were trying to answer the question as to what privacy even means, and how do we even achieve it? How do we even create communication channels for each other, let alone secure communication channels? How do we answer the question as to how to not have conflicting pieces of data? And so these are some of the things that I was kind of looking at that time. And I thought my life according to a lot of the stuff that I was learning, and now my whole goal is to basically provide a platform for people who are expressing themselves in these particular ways. So I just want to, I guess, encourage people who are working on these projects with privacy that it is really very important to empower subcultures, empower all different types of cultures in terms of like pushing creative expression, and also to make sure that activists are able to get their work and their words out into the world without fear of having their information that they're communicating censored. I want to say right now it's especially important because of the consolidation of power by corporations over the control of the internet, and so what's the best way to say it? Yeah, I wanted to just I guess encourage people to continue doing the work that they're doing because of how important it is in this time when there's an effort to have disinformation, that there's a very strong effort by corporations to be an intermediary in data. And I just wanted to express how important it is to decentralize the power of of that communication. And yeah, so I guess that's what I had to say today. And yeah, I wanted to thank you. Do you have any questions?
Hey there, Scott. Thank you so much for that talk. I don't think I have any questions. You have a fan, or probably more than one fans who are watching. Someone yells in our chat like, "Oh my God, Scott, I love you!" So that's not really a question, but a fun thing, I think. Maybe you can hang, or you can still hang with us, because at the end of the event we have like an Ask Me Anything section, and it will be lovely if you could be there. So yeah, thank you, Scott. I hope I see you in a few later.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me today. Yeah, I'm very flattered that you decided to host me, and yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Scott. I'll see you later. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'll see you later.
All right. So if Scott disables his camera, we can move on to the next speaker. We're gonna dive in the how do you say this? Like the major part of this event. Oh, and before I can even announce him, Danny is already sharing his screen. So I'll make this very short. Danny is one of the founders of Swarm, and I'm so happy that a very technical, brilliant mind like his is going to explain to us what is Swarm in very understandable terms. And I hope my kids will also understand this because it's really important. So Danny, how are you? Are you here?
Hello.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, hey, Danny, I will.
I'm here. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. So yes, I'm one of the founders of Swarm with Victor. And currently I'm working on research and specification. So I'm helping developers in implementing all the algorithms that we have envisioned. So today I'm going to talk about the most basic first question. What is Swarm? What Swarm is? So when we're talking about Swarm, we're usually talking about many things. And in this talk, I'm going to go through all of them one by one. So most importantly, I would say it's a decentralized platform for permissionless publishing. Permissionless publishing basically means that if you have something to say, something to show, then you don't have to ask anyone's permission to actually share it with the public. On a technical level, the deepest technical level, it's a peer-to-peer network for addressing, for content address storage and for retrieval of data chunks. So basically, it's a peer-to-peer network whose job is to store and retrieve data based on its address, which depends on the content itself and is stable, not changing. Then, on a higher technical level, it's a set of protocols for allocating the resources which are needed for this platform, namely bandwidth and storage. So it's a set of protocols for the efficient and fair allocation of these resources. And last but not least, it's a whole ecosystem of distributed applications which constitute what we call Web3. I will get into more detail in a moment. So permissionless publishing was from day one basically part of the vision of the World Wide Web. So here I have 3 quotes from 3 very different time points by the inventor of the World Wide Web, Tim Berners-Lee, who published the World Wide Web software while still working at CERN in Geneva, Switzerland. So the first quote is from 1992, which is less than a year after he published the original www software, where he kind of expects that the fundamental change will be a dramatic lowering of the cost of publishing. So basically, permissionless publishing was already a very important idea. Then in 1998, so we're talking about the year of foundation of Google, when the World Wide Web was already taking shape and was going mainstream. So he wrote a whole essay with this title that cool your eyes, don't change. So he kind of recognized that there's some problem going on because information which was linked by one document and should have been accessible but maintained by someone else becomes unreachable because even though it's still online, its reference, its URI is changing. So he already noticed that something is going wrong. And in 2006, which is the height of the Web 2.0 hype, he is outright complaining that when I invented the web, I didn't have to ask anyone's permission. So somewhere along the way, this vision of permissionless publishing and stable references got derailed. And we believe at Swarm, and I certainly believe it personally, that one of the reasons, the fundamental reasons why this vision could not be maintained using the HTTP protocols and its successors is economic. Because in Web 1.0, if you had to publish something, if you had to share some information, you fired up your own web server. And then, depending on whether your content was popular or not, one of two things happened. If your content was unpopular, then nothing happened, but that's the less interesting case. The more interesting case is when your content got popular or it got linked from some popular website. For example, there was such a term as slashdotting someone, meaning that posting a link at Slashdot, which was a very popular blog at the time. So two things happened in rapid succession. First, your internet bills for traffic skyrocketed, and then your web server crashed and your content was no longer available. Because all the costs of publishing were still borne by the publisher. The clients who consume, the consumers of this content, had no way of directly contributing to these dissemination costs, and therefore we had these problems that publishing was not really permissionless if what you had to say was actually popular. And around the turn of the century, around came Web 2.0, which is just a fancy way of saying big companies with big data centers. And they offered kind of a Faustian bargain. So on one hand, they said that, give your content to us. We will put it on our data servers. We can scale up web server together with the demand, so you will not have the problem of your content becoming popular. But in exchange for that, we are going to put ads on it. We're going to decide who gets to see it. We get to decide what is going to be published and what is not going to be published. And in general, they got full control over your content. So basically, in exchange for hosting your content, they asked nothing less than your soul. And in parallel, at the same time, we had the BitTorrent revolution, which was the peer-to-peer revolution. And it was also an economic idea that instead of serving the same content to every downloader, you serve little parts, different parts to each downloader, and then they exchange the different parts between each other, thereby contributing their upstream bandwidth. And this is the idea on which Swarm builds. And what the idea of Web3 is taking this basic mechanics and economics of BitTorrent and making a web-like experience on top of it, where you have hypertext, you have responsive web apps, but everything is distributed and decentralized. And therefore, you no longer have to sign up for this Faustian bargain of Web 2.0. So what is the economics then? Well, on the on the face of it, the downloader, of course, pays for requested data to their peers, although this payment can be, and very often is, just in reciprocal service, that you serve what they ask and they serve what you ask. And the uploader pays for storage over time by the means which we call postage stamps, because they're very similar to the idea of postage stamps. So basically, you prepay on the blockchain for the storage of certain amount of data, and then you affix little pieces of data to what you upload. And as long as these stamps are valid, your data is being stored by the store nodes. And there are two ways for swarm nodes to earn buzz. One is by caching popular content, which is the first mechanism I mentioned, because if you're caching content, you're downloading it once, but then it's being downloaded from you multiple times, meaning that you earn more than you spend, and therefore you're accumulating a profit. And the second one is by storing stamped content, because there's going to be a mechanism by which the buzz that was paid for the postage stamps is going to be distributed among those who are actually storing and making available postage stamp content. So basically, users can earn all the buzz they need for consuming content on Swarm by just staying online and running a Swarm node. You don't have to purchase buzz or anything like that, unless you're a heavy user that consumes much more resources than they provide. Of course, that's also a possibility. So that's the basic economics. And we're now getting to the protocol stack part. So the base layer, the chunk storage, is the network, what I just talked about. So on the network layer, Swarm only knows about these chunks. All the layers above it are abstractions which are provided to the application and the user by the Swarm node itself. So the second layer above fixed size data blocks is arbitrary length files without any metadata. So they are just big binary blobs. And their address depends exclusively on their content. It's, for those who know, it's a hash. It's a one-way hash of the file's content. And these files, any part of these files can be accessed randomly using range queries like you would in a web server, but there's no metadata. And on top of this abstraction, we have a virtual content address web server where you have URIs, path names, file names, you have data, HTTP MIME types, so whether it's a JPEG image or an HTML file or a MP3 music or an MP4 video. And on top of this layer, on top of the virtual content address web server, we have the Swarm hosted dApps, which are written with very much the same toolbox, toolset as web applications. So if you want to develop dApps for Swarm, you don't have to relearn a whole new stack of technologies. You can use your client-side web development technologies and apply them directly to Swarm. And these dApps have direct access to the layers below them. It's also worth mentioning that between any of these two layers, so at any of those little arrows between the layers, there can be encryption added, which has, depending on where you add it, different security implications. But basically, that's where we add encryption wherever it's needed. So let's go to dApps, the applications that run on top of Swarm. So how do you publish an application? So you upload your content to Swarm, you get a root hash from which everything can be accessed, and you register this root hash on the Ethereum blockchain, on ENS, or a similar service of other EVM-based blockchains if Swarm becomes multi-chain, but initially it will be Ethereum. The static and dynamic data that your application uses does not reside on the blockchain because it's very expensive. It resides in Swarm. But the global state changes that every node should be aware of need to go on chain, but it's only the change of a root hash. So these are relatively cheap transactions on the Ethereum chain. And perhaps later, as layer 2 technologies on Ethereum develop, part of them can be moved there as well. Actually, Swarm itself has some rudimentary layer 2 solutions for global state changes, which don't have to be immediately and simultaneously available for everyone. Local state changes that only concern the user's own state of the application. They are stored locally in the browser's local storage, but they can also be backed up on Swarm so that the user can freely move between devices, their computer, their tablet, their mobile phone, and so on. And most importantly, all the business logic gets executed locally, either in the browser or in the local Swarm node. But they get globally verified by the means of Ethereum, which gives us the global consensus. So here are a few, actually 2 examples. So the first example is of a very small distributed application, which is a photo album. So if you want to share your photos with the world, something like people currently do on Instagram, then you use this photo album where both the root hash of the application itself and the photo collections are published on Swarm, and their root hash recorded in the blockchain. The long-term incentives make sure that it's not garbage collected, so it stays online and available. And the short-term incentives drive the publishing cost down, meaning that if you suddenly become a celebrity and everybody wants to see your photos, then they're going to share the burden of looking at them, and it won't incur any extra cost on your part. And similarly, it provides high performance irrespective of the popularity of the content. So this application is very simple. It doesn't need to allow concurrent editing because it's only content from one source. All the editing is done on the editor's computers. And we don't need to add commenting or rating or liking functionality to this particular app, because Swarm apps, the Swarm app ecosystem, works like little components interconnected by a common infrastructure. So liking, commenting, and rating is a different app, which allows you to like, comment, or rate any Swarm-hosted content, including the photo album. So it's not part of the photo album, it's a different app, but they can interoperate with each other. So that's one end of the spectrum. At the other end of the spectrum, we have these gigantic data sets. For example, a map, a world map, or an encyclopedia. So currently these things are OpenStreetMap and Wikipedia in the Web 2.0 paradigm. Both of these are centralized services, even though they're nonprofit and open source. They're still centralized. And because of that, they're grappling with an unsolvable problem. They need to decide what's the official truth. So, for example, both Wikipedia and OpenStreetMap need to make up their mind whether a little patch of land in the Danube wetlands belongs to Serbia, belongs to Croatia, or is the independent nation of Liberland. Of course, there's no objective truth. There are different opinions, and different people have different opinions about this. And in case of Swarm, because operations like making a copy and changing just a little part are very cheap, it means that alternative perspectives are not facing the prohibitive cost of copying over and hosting the entire data set, which is why all the clones of Wikipedia are either dying soon or become hopelessly obsolete and useless very quickly. And that's why we only have one Wikipedia with its own version of official truth, its own editing wars and blocking and accusations of bias and so on and so forth. So with Swarm, with a Swarm-hosted dataset, we don't have any of that because groups or individuals can have their own versions. And even if there are hundreds of thousands of different versions, the user, the end consumer, won't have the problem of choosing between hundreds of thousands, because it's a common observation that on any particular topic, humanity tends to cluster around a few alternatives, let's say at most a dozen. So I just brought up an example when there are three opinions about a particular issue. There might be more, but they're definitely not in the hundreds. They are at most a dozen, I would say, about any particular topic, which means that permissionlessly users will be able to see all the opinions about a particular issue that are relevant enough for somebody to host them on Swarm. And they can use, ratings. They can use, they can look at all of them and make up their own mind. So basically, what they accept as truth, if any, is up to them. And I think that this gives back a very important freedom to consumers of information and makes navigating the abundance of data and the abundance of information which we have in this information age a lot easier and more transparent. So that's the other end of the spectrum. These are the kind of big Swarm-hosted applications and data sets that we're looking forward to. So thank you. And essentially, the message is that Swarm is also the people who are building it, who are using it, who are benefiting from it. So in a way, we're all Swarm. And if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A. And in the end of the Q&A section, I will also participate in answering them. So thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Danny. As always, a very clear presentation. Next up, we have Rinke, who is gonna explain to us how the incentives work. Rinke, I know you have been looking forward to giving this presentation a long time. So please go ahead and use this stage to do so.
All right, thanks, Michel. Do you see me?
Yes, I see your face from really nearby, and you're about to share your screen. Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, let me get this presentation correct. And I know that this is black, so I'll remove it. And we go to my first slide. All right, everybody. Yes, Michel, you're right. I have been looking forward to this presentation for quite a while. And my name is Rinke. Some of you might know me, some of you maybe not. I'm the product owner for Swarm, working with the developers team. And also I'm participating in research and mostly into the research of the economic incentives in Swarm. And that's where I will be talking about today. So I'll be speaking about how we are incentivized to build a Swarm together. But first, why am I here? Why did I get up this morning and decide to do this presentation for you? Well, it's because I'm having some sort of a fake sense of unease. And that's not only because I'm here standing, talking to my laptop and knowing that maybe 80 people or more are listening to me. But also when I'm generally using the internet, where I built my life for a big part, my social network, my interactions, a lot of things happening on the internet. But when I'm interacting with the internet, I know that the internet has very great promises, but still somewhere it seems we missed the turn. And I think the presentation of Scott earlier highlighted some of those problems. I think he also feels this sense of unease. So a natural question, of course, is to ask, well, how did we arrive here? And I can briefly summarize it. What I think is are the reasons. And I think a very important reason is that as humans, we're naturally looking for interaction with other people, right? Online interaction, just as real life interaction is great. Um, and you know, the more interaction, the better. So I'm naturally looking for places where other people are as well. So if there's a platform online that facilitates this interaction, it's only natural for this platform to grow bigger. So the bigger platforms grow bigger. But this interaction on those biggest platforms is nowadays mostly facilitated on centrally controlled servers. And I made this one bold because I think it's very important. So the place where we interact with each other, where we give so much of our lives, is controlled and maintained by a single server or maybe a handful of them, but they are centrally controlled. And most of the times it's also controlled by a corporation that is for profit, right? And hence they have a lot of power. They have a lot of power to do good things with that information, but because of their, you know, their own motives, we're seeing that they're using this power for their own benefit. And what happens with a lot of power, it corrupts. I think it's really true. If you give anybody a lot of power, this person is going to change and it's basically becoming corrupted. That holds for people, let alone for kind of faceless corporations. So what do we do about this? Well, basically, if we analyze that the source of the problem is that this interaction is happening on places which are centrally controlled, well, we all need to collaborate and jointly take the responsibility in hosting the world's data, such that the data is for everybody, but also from everybody, right? And here, the word collaborate is very important because in order to make it not centralized anymore, we need to make it decentralized. But this decentralization involves a lot of working together and collaboration. And that's not very easy to facilitate. But Victor Tron, who was just before me, the founder of Swarm, before he also said that the blockchain basically provides the last missing piece to the decentralized content sharing technologies. And this last missing piece is that with the blockchain, now we can, together with the flow of information, we can create at the same time a flow of value transfer. So that when information is flowing over this network, we can also attach a value to that. And we can use that value to align the incentives of the people who are collaborating together in the network. So what you're seeing here is a picture. I mean, it doesn't really mean anything, but I attached the symbolical meaning of a flywheel. And a flywheel is something that, you know, takes some effort to get rolling into moving. But when this flywheel is moving, it's usually very difficult to stop. And I call this one the flywheel of incentives. And incentives is really this fuel under the Swarm network that, which I believe is going to make the network grow and to flourish. But the flywheel of incentives, you know, you might question, will it start moving? And also, will it continue moving once Swarm operates on a large scale? And right now, in the beginning of the Swarm project, when we are about to get live, it's really important to get you on board, with the vision, but also to get you on board in believing that this network is becoming a reality, right? So I'm talking today about the incentives, but the reasons I'm talking about it is because I want to convince you that yes, it will start moving, and yes, it will continue to operate, even if Swarm operates on a large scale needed to host the world's data. All right, so I'll be highlighting three important points of the incentives. First point is the bandwidth incentives. Secondly, the discovery incentives. And as the last part, the storage incentives. So let me start with the bandwidth incentives. So the bandwidth incentives, they essentially build a trust relationship to exchange bandwidth for bandwidth. And bandwidth essentially is, the amount of data that flows through my computer. So when I'm attaching my computer to Swarm, data is flowing via my computer. And this data is what the amount of data flowing through my computer is what we call the bandwidth. So the goal for the bandwidth incentives is that nodes help each other to send messages to and from any node in the network. Let's see here. Oh, my slides are a bit messed up, but it doesn't matter. So what you're seeing here below is we're having a sender and a forwarder and a receiver. And as a sender, I want to send a message, well, to the receiver, obviously. But in this huge network, which maybe consists of maybe 1 million nodes, if Swarm is becoming very successful, I, of course, cannot maintain a direct connection with all those 999 other nodes. Instead, I'm relying on nodes to help me. So these are the forwarders. Right here, we have one forwarder, but maybe we have multiple ones. So I'm sending a message to a receiver, and the forwarder is there to help me, right? So this forwarder, you can imagine that we need to use a part of its bandwidth, right? So the forwarder helps me to send the message to the receiver, and the answer comes back also via the forwarder or forwarders, and I'm getting an answer back. Well, so just sending and receiving messages is great, of course, but how does Swarm use this concept? And essentially, Swarm uses this concept of sending and receiving messages and answers to facilitate upload and download, because that's in the end what's important in a decentralized content sharing network. Right, so in the upload, you can see I substituted the message for a chunk. And a chunk is this canonical piece of data of which all the data in Swarm consists. So if I'm uploading something, I'm sending the chunks to one particular place in the network, and I'm getting back a receipt. And a receipt is basically confirmation that it is being stored. The same for download. Only now I substituted the message with a chunk request, basically a request for a certain chunk containing the hash of the chunk, and sending the chunk request to somebody whom I think might know more about this particular chunk, the forwarder in this case. The forwarder doesn't have the chunk himself. Instead, he forwards this chunk request to somebody else, happens to be the receiver, and the receiver looks, he has the chunk, and he sends back the chunk via the same path as the message originally came as well. So this is how we're using this concept of sending and receiving messages and answers to facilitate upload and download. But you might think, okay, what about incentives here? And actually, it's a very simple method, and there's a real life analogy to it. So I put here on the right, I put the image of a bar. And that's because I believe that the bandwidth incentives for Swarm are actually very similar to how it works in a bar as well. So if we're talking about a local pub, right? I might enter this pub, and the first time I'm entering it, the barman is just fine with me entering, and he keeps a score of how many beers or coffee I'm drinking. And I do the same. So we are both keeping score of my consumption. And at the moment that I'm leaving the bar, the barman asks me to, well, pay for everything I consumed. And because I also kept score of that, most likely will be aligned with what we think. And when I'm leaving, I just pay the barman. So also in the bandwidth incentives. So in the bandwidth incentives, if we are having here the sender and the forwarder, if the sender sends a chunk request to the forwarder and the forwarder sends a chunk back, they're just both keeping score of the bandwidth consumed and provided. Yeah. So the next thing that happens in Swarm, and which also happens in the bar, is that the trust limit, we have a trust limit after which we are expecting a settlement. But this trust limit increases with each transaction. So what I mean with that is that if I'm in a bar and I'm visiting this bar every day, maybe the first day the barman wants me to pay right away, the second day as well. But after a week, the barman might tell me, okay, Rinka, please, You don't not directly have to pay right away, but you can just pay the next day, or you just pay the next week. It doesn't matter because I know that you're coming back anyways. So we have this trust limit that increases with each transaction. And so it also happens in Swarm. And then, of course, like we can keep on keeping scores of the bandwidth consumed and received. But ultimately, if somebody is just using up a lot of bandwidth, we want this person to settle as well. And so we do the settlement when the bill becomes too high. And I have a small image of this as well. So here we're having Bob and Alice. And you see on both sides, they're keeping this, what we call the chunk-o-meter. And this is basically how they are keeping track of how much bandwidth they consumed and provided. So first of all, Bob sends a request, and this may be a request for a chunk, or this may be an upload to Alice, and Alice answers that. So because Bob requested something, his balance goes to -10, and the balance from Alice goes to +10. But now, because they're both peers in the Swarm network, and it might be that they're both using it, or they're both being utilized as a forwarder by another node. At one point, Alice right now is requesting something from Bob, and Bob answers. So their balance is back at the beginning again, because they're exchanging bandwidth for bandwidth here. But now Bob is requesting again something, and Alice answers it. So the balances are again at -10 and +10. And Bob requests again. And again, maybe Bob right now is downloading Star Wars or some other very big file. And now they reach this trust limit. And Bob sends a settlement to Alice. So it might be important to note here that Bob doesn't need to send this settlement to Alice. But it's in Bob's interest to send this settlement, because if Bob doesn't send the settlement at the moment that they reach the trust limit, Alice will just disconnect from Bob. And yes, Alice will have a little bit of loss from that particular transaction, but it's in the end, it's not so much. And remember that this trust limit increases by time. So in the beginning, if Bob is just a new peer, this trust limit or loss is pretty low. So Bob sends the settlement, and we are back at square one. Now you might think, okay, how does this settlement work? Well, for the settlement, we're using the Swarm checkbook, and the Swarm checkbook is essentially the same as like a real life checkbook. But of course, we're doing it online, we're doing it on the blockchain. So for the blockchain checkbook to work, which is a smart contract, the first thing that you need to do is to deposit money in this checkbook. As with a real checkbook, you would deposit money in your bank account. And then what you can do with this checkbook with money deposited in it, well, you can write checks against this balance. And the act of writing checks is basically what consists of a settlement. So if Bob sends a settlement transaction to Alice, basically what Bob does, he writes a check. And what can Alice do with this check? Well, just as with a real life check, he can cash it. So Alice can present this check to the blockchain, and the blockchain, because it's an autonomous smart contract, will look at the face value of the check, verify the signature, and will check if there still is balance in the smart contract. And if that's all true, then the money will just be paid out. All right, so the bandwidth incentive, I hope you understand the sentence now, is to build trust relationships to exchange bandwidth for bandwidth. And we have seen that is what's happening. Then about the discovery incentives. And the discovery incentives, the sentence here is to opportunistically, but without a cost. And the goals, or the goal of the discovery incentives is, discovery means to discover new nodes. And that's so important because we are building this network, and without nodes being connected to each other, we cannot build a network. So it's important that if new nodes join the network, that they are quickly connected to other nodes. And also that existing nodes continuously maintain a healthy connectivity. So existing nodes all the time need to hear about other nodes joining. And you actually find out that these are two sides of the same coin, because it just basically means if new nodes join, we want them to connect, or if something changes, if new nodes disappear or whatever, we want nodes continuously to maintain a healthy connectivity. And this is the image in the rest of my slides. Yellow is the node I'm talking about. Blue is its connections, and gray are just nodes which are in the Swarm network, but maybe not a direct connection. So in Swarm, what happens? There's a continuous chatter going on of nodes telling themselves or telling each other what is their connectivity level. So how well am I connected to other nodes? And based on that information, the other peers, so maybe the blue peers here, because Alice says I'm having a connectivity level of 4 in this case. If a blue node knows that Alice's connectivity level is 4, and maybe a blue node also knows about another node that might improve the connectivity of Alice, they will just continuously chatter, and this particular blue node is going to proactively suggest to Alice that the peer's connectivity level would increase with a certain connection. Yeah, so we're having here Bob and 2 connections. So Bob connectivity level is 2, and Carol is joining the network, and Carol is connected to Alice, but not yet to Bob. Well, Alice knows that if Bob would be connected to Carol, Bob's connectivity level will be 3. So what does Alice do? Alice sends a message to Bob, telling Bob, hey Bob, have you already met Carol? And Bob, of course, doesn't know Carol yet. So with that information, Bob sends the message to Carol, and Carol is now a connection of Bob, and you see that the connectivity level of Bob has risen to 3. So what about the incentives here as well? So here it's actually interesting, because whereas in the bandwidth incentives we use this explicit incentive of keeping accounting and doing settlement, it's not really needed here, because in this instance actually it's in the interest of all nodes to have a well-connected swarm. So here not only is it in the interest of Bob to be connected to Carol, it's also in the interest of Carol to be connected to Bob. It's even in the interest of Alice that Carol is connected to Bob, because maybe next time Bob is going to disappear, but Carol maybe built up a good connectivity because Bob gave some information to Carol. So it's actually really in the interest of all the nodes that everybody is well connected, because that's what makes the network resilient. Yeah, so there's no direct incentives needed to align the individually optimal behavior with the globally optimal. And you might wonder, like, why did I talk about this? Because there's no incentive here. Actually, I think there is, but we call it an indirect incentive. And in Swarm, there are actually many cases where there is an occurrence of an indirect incentive. And I think it's still very important to highlight this particular example, because it shows that with just a couple of direct incentives being spread in a network in the source code at the good places, we actually can truly incentivize collaboration. All right, so the discovery incentives, I hope you understand right now, is opportunistically without cost. Then about the storage incentives. The storage incentives is basically the permissionless gatekeeper to Swarm, which ensures that store nodes are fairly compensated. Well, what does it mean? First, about the goals. The goals of the storage incentives are twofold, and truly twofold in this case. So the first goal is that the storage incentives needs to ensure that the right to write to Swarm is optimally allocated. And I'll come later into what exactly that means. And the second goal is to compensate nodes for storing chunks. And we're using 2 methods for these, and I will explain them shortly. For the first goal, we're using the postage stamp system, and having the postage stamp system, we can create a storage lottery that fulfills the second goal. All right, so the postage stamp system, I said the goal here is to ensure that the right to write to Swarm is optimally allocated. And to understand this goal, you take a small step back and figure out what is Swarm, because basically what you're building is a huge decentralized immutable store of chunk, which can be compared with a hard drive. But this hard drive is not hosted on one computer, but basically we're all hosting this virtual hard drive on all our machines, and we are collaborating together. And just with the real hard drive in the distributed immutable store of chunks, we're having limited capacity, right? But Swarm is permissionless, so it basically means that everybody can write to it. I don't need to ask permission. So what's the problem with the permissionless hard drive? And I was talking to Michelle the other day, and she has kids, and she also has a hard drive. And her kids maybe wants to upload videos or games to this hard drive, whereas Michelle just wants to upload, I don't know, a lot of data from her Swarm node to this hard drive, right? So having this one hard drive shared by many people creates the question of like, who is allowed to write to Swarm? But this question is almost like, is clashing with the permissionless nature of Swarm. So how do we ensure that the right to write to Swarm is optimally allocated while still being permissionless, right? And I put here declaration of independence. And I put it there because, you know, somebody might want to put this declaration of independence on Swarm. I also put a selfie of myself in this case, because I also want to put this selfie on Swarm. But maybe some anonymous internet user comes around, and this anonymous internet user wants to upload Star Wars, right? So this is basically the question. We need to make a decision of what is being uploaded to Swarm. Well, actually, the solution is very simple. Because we can just attach a cost to the upload, and we can instruct the nodes, and it's in the incentive of the nodes to do so, to basically preserve the highest valued content. Because if those nodes care about the health of Swarm, which we assume they do for the time being, they know that this is, you know, a credible commitment of the person who uploads it. That is like, we can take it as, how much do I value if this content is in Swarm, right? This is a credible commitment. All right, so that is the postage stamp system. And how nice would it be if we could use this money paid in to compensate the nodes for storing these chunks? And this is essentially what the storage lottery does. So just as in a real lottery, well, what does it do? Like, if I buy a ticket from the lottery vendor, I have a chance of winning a jackpot. And just with it, a real lottery, in Swarm, you can also buy a lottery ticket. So we might ask, you want to buy a lottery ticket to Swarm? That's storing one chunk, please. So the price of one lottery ticket is to store one chunk. Yeah, and it's actually very nice because if the price of lottery ticket is to store one chunk, then with storing a chunk, I am being compensated by having a higher chance of winning this lottery. And why a lottery? You might ask, why not just pay them out? Well, it's because this lottery has this nice property that we don't need to do a lot of interaction. So payouts, as you know, in digital realm are expensive. But with a lottery, basically, we only need to do one payout. And because maybe 1,000 people have the chance of winning the lottery, actually this one chance of the jackpot kind of pays out all the 1,000 nodes. Yeah, so this is the permissionless gatekeeper to Swarm. His name is Storage Incentives, and he is the permissionless gatekeeper to Swarm, as we've seen in the postage stamp system. And he is also there to ensure that the store nodes are fairly compensated. And this is the storage lottery scheme, which I talked about really briefly. So may you upload worthy content and have the fortunes on your side, he might say. So that is the storage incentives. And as we've seen, the permissionless gatekeeper to Swarm, which ensures that store nodes are fairly compensated. So to sum up, I spoke about the bandwidth, which build trust relationship to exchange bandwidth for bandwidth. Discovery, opportunistically without cost, and storage, the permissionless gatekeeper to Swarm, which ensures that the store nodes are fairly compensated. So the flywheel of incentives is ready to start moving. And I think it might start moving sooner than you might expect right now. So this is how we are incentivized to build a swarm together. And I thank you for your attention. You can reach out to me if you have more questions. And yeah, have a good day.
Well, thank you so much, Rinke, for that presentation. As always, it was very clear, and I think my kids understand it now because the audience does not know this, but Rinke actually practiced or rehearsed by giving this presentation to my children, and we thought like if they understand it, like the audience will understand it, right? So they definitely got it because they're very excited to start running their own B notes to make money with it. So thank you, Rinke.
Bye-bye.
See you later in the AMA. So 2 things, housekeeping messages. The first one is if you have any questions, we already have like tons of questions in the Q&A, this Zoom call. You can ask all your questions there. And if you want to join our lounge, we have sort of a lounge on Telegram, which is called Swarm Orange Lounge, where like-minded people like to discuss and make jokes about decentralized storage. Just scan this QR code. It will give you a URL to join the group, right? You can also ask all your questions there. We will be reading from both the Zoom Q&A and the Telegram group to answer the questions. Next up in this wonderful event, we have Janos, who is the, how do you say this, like the dev lead on the Swarm B client. And Janos is going to talk about everything that's new and polished, etc. in the B client. So Janos, please take it away.
Hello, thanks, Michelle. As Michelle announced me, I am Janos, and I will be talking about what the Swarm core team was doing in the past 2 months since the last release 0.3 of the B client. As you may already know, B is the second Swarm client implementation written in the Go programming language. And the release 2 months ago was full packed of features, most importantly, the bandwidth incentives that are enabled by default. We released PSS, which is a zero-leak messaging built on top of Swarm, and also we enabled support for Clef, which is an external signer at that release. So a lot of stuff was done there, and I think that it was time to improve the code base and reiterate on what we made so that it can be even better. And this is what we did with the release that we made tagged today. This is 0.4 release. You can download it with on the GitHub page. So B is of course the open source project, and in this regards, we try to make code as maintainable as possible. We did add some new features to the 0.4 release. We addressed some performance and fixed some bugs. So documentation is also updated a bit for better understandings of what we are doing. So as I said, open source projects are there for other people to use them, not as in binary format, but to use the code and to build upon them, or upon the code, or with the code, something new. So we are trying to make this code maintainable well, first for our own team, but also for others. And we addressed some code organizational problems within the retrieval protocol, pulsing protocol, and pinning especially. So basically, you can reuse the code, import packages in your own projects, and so on, and experiment a bit easier. Without getting into much details there, you can check out our GitHub repository. Besides that, we did add some features to this release. And the most important one is PSS mailboxing. And what it does, so when someone sends you a message over Swarm, it may be possible that your node is not online and you may miss that message. So mailboxing makes sure that you eventually get that message. This is done by pull syncing protocol. So when your node comes up and your syncs chunks that are that you should be responsible for storing, some of those chunks may be actually a message for you, and you will get the message. Yeah, this is a pretty neat feature, I think. We addressed some pinning API features also. Up until now, you could have uploaded files and collections that are pinned, but you could not pin them afterwards. Now it is possible. So our API contains exposes endpoints that would allow you to pin and unpin files and collections whenever you want. A small but good user-facing feature is that we are now exposing NAT underlay address. So when your node is running behind a NAT, so your router provides some network address translating, you will see this exact underlay address in your API and logs, so that you can share them with share it with other nodes without manually constructing it. And last but not least important, it is very important that our packaging got improved a lot, and we now support Debian, RPM, and Homebrew on macOS packages with full service support. So up until now, we distributed packages just as binary, either package in Debian and RPM, but now there are services configurable, and also working with Clef that we provide, so that you can install them side by side and have both B and Clef running pretty quick on your machine. Windows support will come, but we need some more time to polish it. Beside all of this, performance is something that we try to address always, and we have some important improvement in hashing. So it uses a hashing pool for better memory allocation, and you should see less CPU utilization on when hashing. This means when you upload and download files, when you hash chunks, which is pretty much that Swarm is doing all the time, and when it is used. So it is pretty important, and this is actually the pool that we implemented. at least in our representation. So bugs, we when we write code, bugs are inevitable, and this one is, I think, a good representation of the first one. I tried to find a good looking one, as we had a data inconsistency problem in a very rare edge case, but it is important to be fixed. So our syncing and garbage collection was, they were creating a data consistency issue that we fixed, and you should actually update your B node to the 0.4 release in regards to this fix. Swap protocol improvements here and there, some polishing that was quite nice for some other edge cases, and correct cancellation in protocols. This could also be in the performance, because now a node would better handle other peers that are not behaving so well within the protocols, and it is acting faster on such events. Again, edge cases, but pretty possible in real world scenarios. So we actually polished that. And so documentation, we are trying to keep up with the documentation as the ongoing process, but this time we prioritized it a bit, both for growing our own team, for new team members to be able to jump in solving problems faster, and also for the community. So we are using the standard Go documentation, auto-generated. Feel free to browse it and see what is there. And this was all about the B, but B is not the only project in the Swarm ecosystem. Far from it. One of these components is the beekeeper, and beekeeper is as you would, if you that you would imagine, is orchestrating bees. So we are using beekeeper for integration testing on our Kubernetes cluster. For those who may not know, Kubernetes is a very popular software to orchestrate containers, Linux containers. And we are running our bees in Linux containers, managed by Kubernetes. And now Kubernetes is able to directly orchestrate bees using Kubernetes. So earlier that was done with Helm, but now we are making this native to Beekeeper in order to get better, more freedom, better features for starting, stopping bees, simulating poor network connections, and so on. So it is the first step, and next we will have fully dynamic node testing. As this chart shows, the orange pointer here is actually Beekeeper communicating with the Kubernetes directly. And as I said, the ecosystem is the main goal of the Swarm. and we are trying to expand and attract other communities to contribute and use Swarm. So B is the base layer, and we are streamlining it to facilitate adoption, and maybe eventually to remove features from it. Well, to act as, for example, the router in your home that you just plug it in and you don't worry too much about it. You have to configure it, but later you just you just use your computer, your browser, your applications, and don't think about the router until something is not working. But because of that that abstraction, we created a new JavaScript team. So it is ongoing effort for higher level implementations of Swarm concepts that would be outside of the B, like feeds or ACL, and probably to pull out some of the high level concepts from B to new implementations that would that may be more attractable to browser and JavaScript developers. After me, I suppose that Attila will present the roadmap, and I am pretty excited to see how this will affect the whole ecosystem, and also be improved and to work better. So back to you, Michel.
Well, thank you so much, János, as always. If people want to reach out to you, they can do it over Mattermost, I think.
Yeah, I'm there on Swarm Mattermost. Yeah.
Awesome. János, thank you so much for your presentation. And as János mentioned, there is a very new team being born. Oh God, you spoiled it. But yes, there is a team being born in Swarm. And as you can see already on your screen, this is Attila, who is part of this team and one of the founders. It is the Swarm.js team, and as Attila and I had this conversation before, of course, I think they're trying to do something that is nearly impossible. So I let Attila explain how he will do that. Attila, go ahead.
Thank you, Michel. Let me share my screen. All right. So hello, everyone. I'm Attila, and I will talk about the new JavaScript team that János mentioned. So why do we have this team? So as you heard in the previous presentation, B is going to a linear direction, more closely to being a router for distributed applications. But one of the goals of Swarm was and is to make decentralized applications possible. And basically our goal in the JavaScript team is to make the decentralized applications Swarm possible and also easy. And let me tell you about my personal story. So 3 years ago, I started working on a decentralized social app, and I found IPFS, and I also found Swarm, and there were a lot of difficulties to using them. I have to debug a lot of crypto code, invent new techniques to achieve relatively easy things, do a lot of research and integrate like different libraries with highly varying quality instead of working the application itself. So now I'm very happy that there is a dedicated team in Swarm that is going to work on making this possible and easy. And this is, I'm happy to join this team. And it's very challenging, but it's very exciting as well. So in this presentation, I will talk about how we are going to do this. First of all, I would like to introduce the team. It's Viktor, Wojtek, and myself right now. but we also talking to other people at the moment that we are growing this team. And this is a fresh new team with the right skill set. We are seasoned JavaScript developers, and we will work mostly in JavaScript and not on the core Go client. So we will dedicate our time to make this happen. And I would like to share our roadmap that will take us to this goal. And basically, I put this roadmap in 4 parts. And at the end, I set the goal to have Swarm browser access so that you can build your applications and then people will be able to access it from the browser. And I would like to take you through the steps, how you are going to do this. And also, I would like to talk a bit about our methodology, how we are planning to get there. So the first milestone, we are going to create a JavaScript library to access the current B API in a convenient and well-documented way, instead of using command line tools, what you are doing now. And I chose to explain this as the analogy of building a house. This milestone is akin like building a solid foundation first. So this is not something very exciting. This is not something very difficult even, but this is something that has to be done, and it has to work well in order to build bigger things on top of it. And so we will build the chunks API, the bytes API, files, manifest, CSS tags, pinning that you may be familiar with, the current ones that B has. But after this, once we have this, we can move on to our second milestone, where we will add building blocks for having mutability, signing, and encryption. Basically, these are the features that are described in the book of Swarm. So achieving this milestone should be relatively straightforward because this is something that is well researched. And with these features, it's already possible to build applications, but it's not that easy. It's still a bit low level. Staying with the house analogy, this is all like plumbing, electricity, wiring, all this kind of stuff that you have to do in order to have a comfortable house, but you know that's not enough to live comfortably. So after this milestone, we have our third milestone, which is a DebDB for storage and messaging. So in this milestone, we want to enable developers focusing on the what and not the how, so that we would like to provide a convenient interface to build applications with sharing data between people and apps. For example, public forums, decentralized GitHub, shared calendar, and so on and so on. Staying to our analogy, this is the rooftop on our house, and this includes features like key value DB, collections, indexing and querying, a data mapping layer, access control, and messaging protocols. So this is, with this level, it's, or I would say it's already possible and easy to build application, but there is a missing piece. Is that like how do you access these applications from the browser? And this is uncharted territory. Part of these things exist, but not everything works well together. So in this moment, I would like to talk a bit about our methodology. We will need to do a lot of research because these things may exist or may not. But when we want to build something that works together, we will need to do a lot of research, and we will do this parallelly by working on our milestones. And for example, we will work on connectivity research. The goal is to find the best way to connect to Swarm from the browser, and we will validate assumptions from about JS-lib P2P, WebRTC, etc. We would like to build collaborations, find partners in the Ethereum ecosystem who has similar goals to share code, experience, and work toward common goals, and also share the burden of research. And the third thing I would like to mention here is that we plan to build sandbox projects. So basically, we are going to build small applications that will use our libraries, and that has like value because it provides documentation to our features, but it also enables us to test our features, how easy it is to use and how well they work together. And once we have this, then we reach our fourth milestone, which is Swarm browser access. So in this step, we imagine that we might need to build browser extensions and protocol handling into the browsers, inject the Swarm API for dApps, manage network connections, have identity management, and provide the same level of security as traditional web applications provide. And basically, with this, we achieve our goal that you can build and use decentralized applications as easily as it is right now with traditional web applications. So this is my presentation, and we know that these goals are very ambitious and some things may be impossible right now, but we like challenges and we are giving it a try, and we are growing. So join us if you are interested. Thank you.
Attila, thank you so much for this presentation. I know there's like this big part in your milestone where basically, it's just research. So you hit this wall where you call it uncharted territory, but it's basically a place where no one has gone before. This is like probably the most stupid question someone could ask, but do you have any idea how long it will take before we can all continue our dApp projects because we have a very nice JS library?
Well, yeah, I mean, JS library is expected to have soon to some milestones. Like I expect the second milestone to be done by the first half of next year. But like the browser access, I cannot really tell. I would like to have it done as soon as possible so that we can start building these applications as soon as possible as well.
And if you say like dog fooding, so basically creating like these small applications to thoroughly test the libraries, like what kind of apps were you thinking about?
Well, first of all, we have some idea about building a dashboard to see the health of your Swarm or B node, and also add the functionality so that you can upload files easily, you can track how many files you have and all these kind of things. But there are some advanced features that we might think of something more special. For example, there will be a demo which presents the PSS functionality of Swarm, something like that. So.
Okay, awesome. I'm gonna continue the event before you spoil the next presentations because one of the coolest things I have seen recently. Thank you, Attila. You can disable your camera, please. So one of the coolest things I have seen in the last weeks, I think, is the following presentation. So how shall I announce the next speaker? To start off, I have to say the next section will be all about demos. You will see, code and applications running. So this is going to be the fun part. The next speaker is a good friend of mine, and he has done an amazing job with his project, or like with his organization even. And he's going to show some amazing stuff. So Eduardo, Edu, are you here?
Hi, Michel. Can
Hey,
you hear me?
So Edu, I'm so happy to see you and to see that we are wearing the same color of sweater. So without further ado, I've been looking forward to your presentation so much. So please go ahead and kick it off.
Thank you, Michel. Let's share my screen. Okay, 1 second. This one. Okay. Well, hello everyone. My name is Eduardo Antuña, and I am the project lead of Tabnode. Well, first of all, thank you to the Swarm team to having me here today. It's a big pleasure to be part of this live event. I am really excited about all these things that are happening today and the coming months around Swarm, and it's a big pleasure to be part of that. Today, I would like to show how to run a node on Tabnode, why you should do it, and why Tabnode is the easy and the secure way to do it. So let's start by talking about our current model a little, what is happening and what we want to solve. And the thing is, right now in internet models, users are using free applications, or they believe that they are free applications, but we know that that's not the truth. The developers, the companies are selling these data that are gathering from the users to advertisers, data brokers, or issuers, or other people, just to create a business model on top of this. And they are also giving this money to the cloud providers. So at the end, they have created a business model on top of our data. The thing is, we believe this model is broken since all the value is in one side of the equations. So that means that at the end, the user are the real product of all of this. We have heard this or read this news in several media recently, and this is happening every day. We can read that Apple contractor regularly hears confidential details on serial recordings, worker has heard drug deals, medical details, and people having sex. The thing is, we don't think that this is right. I mean, maybe it could be fun at some point, but what happens if you are homosexual in a country that it's illegal? They can report you to the authorities. And at the end, this data that we are giving for free is giving them all the power. We also see how, for example, Cambridge Analytica used this power of data to influence in the election, or how the governments are using this power. At the end, we need to realize that data nowadays is a weapon, and this weapon is used by governments to manipulate people, and the people are giving this weapon to the governments without even know about that. So we need to fix this situation. We need to create a firewall around this data. So that is why we start to develop Web3. We believe that with this new Web3, we can solve some of the past issues. But what is happening in reality? The thing is, people are starting to using these cool dApps, but we are committing the same mistakes that previously. The thing is, if when you access to, for example, this cool dApp, you go to the Google public DNS to get the IP of the service of Amazon services hosting this website. And to interact with this website, it's probably that you are using MetaMask connected to Infura. So at the end, we are just doing the same that before. We are using centralized service providers to access to this content. But what that means in reality? I don't know if you are aware of that, but when you are using MetaMask to connect to your accounts through Infura, maybe they can get all your accounts since you are always querying the same accounts, and even they can know where are you based and if you are moving around, because at the end we are using always the same accounts, and now with these blockchains, these accounts have all your balance. So at the end, we are again losing privacy because we are using these centralized providers. So that is why we create Tabnode. We started to develop Tabnode 3 years ago, and the idea behind this is to try to avoid the situation in which people are using decentralized apps in a centralized manner. And what was our purpose? Well, we tried to make as easy as possible to run dApps in a truly decentralized manner to fight against this situation. That is why we create this open source software that allow users to use it in a truly decentralized manner. We want to unlock the potential of decentralized technologies to be untraceable, to be private, and also to switch this value from cloud providers. So here is when we can start to talk about the vision of Swarm and the vision of Damnode. The vision of Damnode is to create a human-centric decentralized hardware infrastructure. And from the point of view of the Swarm, they are trying to create a decentralized storage and communication system for a sovereign digital society. So at the end, we have both the same vision. We are both part of the same puzzle. We are only two pieces that try to complete this global vision. And what is this global vision? Okay, we want to create and empower a digital freedom. That is the key point of all this. But we know why, but what is the final vision of this? Well, we want to switch this value from the cloud providers to the users. So we have seen during these years that privacy maybe is not enough. It's not an enough argument for people running nodes. It's something that people believe it's important, it's good to have, but maybe it's not enough. We have seen, for example, Ethereum nodes had this decrease these years, since it's very expensive to run a node and makes not too much sense if you don't have this philosophical motivation. So this incentivization layer that Swarm is presenting is the key point of all this. It's the thing that is making this model viable. At the end, if we don't have this incentivization to run nodes, maybe people are not willing to do it. But if you have this incentivization, you are being part of this network, and you are making this switch of the value to the final user. So since you are running a node, it makes sense that you get the value directly. So you are creating a community around your dApps. And for me, it's very exciting to be able to make this real, to be able to show how easy it is to run this node, and how easy are you going to be part of this incentivized network. So let me show you how you can install B on Damnode. So mainly this is the dashboard of Damnode. Right now I'm connected to my Damnode on my home, and this is the dashboard where I can see some general information about the current status of my Damnode. They can also add a new devices to my Damnode. The idea is that running this node allow other of your friends and family to run nodes and make easy for them also to be part of this decentralized network if they don't have the enough knowledge to set up a node. And here we have the App Store, which is where you can install several applications. And now we are going to see how we can install one of those. That is going to be big for sure. And the next section is the packages that I have installed right now. And today I will also talk about the DMS, the Damnode Monitor Systems. That is a package that allows you to track your current system, the status of your current system. And it's going to be very important to track all this incentivization model. So let's start by installing this V package. So, well, as you can see, here you have some information about the package. Just after click install, I only need to put a password for my kids, submit. And the thing that is happening here is the Damnode is downloading the image from the internet. He's checking the hash of the image from a smart contract, and he's checking that everything is fine. And after, as you can see, 30 seconds, the node is running. That's quite interesting. And now the node is waiting until we found this account here. So let's do that. Let's go to the Swarm faucet to make this happen. Okay. Another robot, I think so. Yeah, okay. Now, so great. Now we just request some funds from the faucets to be able to start to be part of the network. Let's try to check it. This account, that is the one that I want to going to use this time. Okay, I have the balance, and after a while, we are going to see how the checkbook is going to be created. And also, we can check here that right now, after install the B packet, I have a new dashboard on my DMS. I have the B dashboard installed by default, at the moment that they install the package, and that is really great. It makes quite easy to have metric of your nodes. So let's see. Yeah, as you can see, the checkbook start to happen. And if we check the logs, we can see how the node started. Yeah, we deploy a new checkbook and the node started. So now we can see some metrics here. Yeah, it's great. Okay, so yeah, we just have 3 connections and the node is running. But now we want to have some cool metrics here. So that is why I'm going to upload a file. I don't know if you can see my console, but I'm just trying to submit a file. Okay. 1 second. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now I am submitting a file to the network. As you can see, we start to having debit, credit, and yeah, the thing is happening. Now we are part of this integration model, and as you can see, it only takes 2 minutes and a half, something like that, not too much. And this is amazing. It's really amazing to be part of this and to be able to become a node of an integration network as easy as this. But do you know what is more exciting than this? For me, is the future, the thing that are going to happen later. The thing is, now we have this node, we have this incentivation model, but now it's when we need to create something bigger than this one. We only have small pieces in this big puzzle. We can understand this like the first computer. We have this first computer that is the DAP node itself, and also we have now the hard drive. It's like the world computer. And now that we have this base layer is when other application can start to happen and when all this model makes real. For example, the work that Fair Data Society is making is crucial for making that happen. We expect to have alternatives to Dropbox in this new incentivization network. We expect to have the Fair drive that allow us to send mails in a fair and secure way. And at the end, the future is going to be amazing. And we are just seeing the beginning of everything. And it's a very good time to be part of this. And it's amazing to be part of this. So that is why I would like to ask you to run a node. We provide an image so you can install it in your hardware. You can buy a box with a plug and play solution, and you can also install a year-end version that we released some months ago. But important here is that help us to create this to build this empower digital freedom and help us to change the world. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Edu. I'm happy to be able to change the world together with you and DAppNode because you're doing an amazing job. Also, I know the whole team at DAppNode is like fully aligned ideologically with what Swarm and the broader crypto world is doing. Yeah, again, can you, maybe this is an important thing I think for people to know. So in order to get this funded, because it's of course like totally an open source project, DAppNode, but maybe you can re-mention this, like DAppNode is also selling hardware, I think?
Yeah, we are also selling hardware. At the end, we try to make as easy as possible for people to run nodes. So mainly the idea of selling nodes is to be able to run a node for people that doesn't know or doesn't have this technical knowledge to have it. But at the end, for us, doesn't matter if you want to install it or if you want to buy it. At the end, it's just to make easy. So that is the point of all.
Okay, awesome, Edu. Thank you so much, and
welcome.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Dan and Wojtek, who are going. Oh, Dan, you're already here. So, who is going to show us one of these dog fooding apps that Attila was talking about in the Swarm.js team. So, one of the I think like amazing features of Swarm B currently is that we can have zero leak messaging. And so Dan is going to explain this and also show it. So Dan, please take it away.
Thanks, Michelle. Pleasure to be here. So yes, I'm going to show you some of Swarm's delicious dog food. I'm going to demo one of Swarm's sort of most unique features, which is called PSS, which stands for Postal Service on Swarm, but is also bzz, whispers. Psst. So it's Swarm's version of Ethereum Whisper, which is part of the original Ethereum Holy Trinity, which was Swarm, Ethereum, and Whisper, which were originally intended to form the world computer. So we repeatedly talked about Swarm as the hard drive of the world computer, and so Ethereum is the complement, the CPU, and Whisper is the messaging component. So PSS is intended to deliver completely untraceable messages, which means you don't know who sent it, and nobody within the chain that it's sent along can discern who sent it or where it's going to. And similarly, nobody except for the sender and the recipient are able to read that. So it's practically usable to set up communication channels between nodes or individuals. So we'll note that the audit is still to be done. So if you're Edward Snowden listening, then maybe hold off until we do our next release. So I'll share my screen now. We can read more about PSS in the section 4.4 of the Book of Swarm. That gives you some details also about how it can be used initially to set up triple Diffie-Hellman key exchange and then double ratchet key generation after that. So I prepared a short infographic here just to kind of explain like how the system does work. So you can see on the left hand side here, first we wrap a payload inside a Trojan chunk, which is then inserted into Swarm's disk. And now in each node in Swarm's disk is given a neighborhood of responsibility, which is the section of the total disk that they're responsible for storing and then serving up to its peers. So once these Trojan chunks go into the disk, they're completely indistinguishable from any other content address chunks. And then as Rink has shown, they get forwarded along until they eventually arrive at the B client within the neighborhood of responsibility. And then each node, each chunk that comes in is checked against the decryption key of the node. And in the event that it can be decrypted, then the message is delivered. So you can see it's kind of like a new and unique concept that Swarm has just implemented. And I'm going to show you a short, small example of how we've actually implemented that and try to do a live demo, which hopefully will be successful. So this is just a very, very simple, cheesy app just to show how simple it is. This is basic view boilerplate, and then here's the meat of it. We have a WebSocket connection that listens for a topic ID, and then similarly we just post our payload into the into B, which then sends it into the network. So without further ado, let's give it a crack. So this is my application, and I've got two Swarm nodes running here. So we're going to try and send from the first to the second. We take the public key and the overlay address, first 2 bytes, post those in to send this message. Cross fingers. Amazing, it has arrived. So that's kind of like a very simple explanation or an example of the kind of thing that we can do with this. It's it can also be used wherever a completely private pub sub system is useful to initiate communication channels or notifications and so on and so forth. There's also some information in the docs under the PSS messaging, so you want to give it a crack yourself. And now we're going to go over to Wojtek, who hopefully is available, and to show us a slightly more complex example, which instead of sending to Swarm addresses, actually derives those from Ethereum addresses. So Wojtek, are you there?
Yeah, hi Dan. Thank you very much. So hi everyone, I'm Wojtek. I'm a member of the newly formed Swarm.js team. And today I'm going to build on top of the amazing demo that Dan has showed, and I'm going to show you how you can actually send a PSS message directly to an Ethereum address. So here I have also a very simple Vue.js app. It's a little bit more complex because it's actually packaged, but in reality, it's very similar to what Dan has showed. This script that I'm running right now, all it does, it builds the Vue.js app, then it packs it into an archive here, and then it uploads it to a gateway. And I should receive a reference hash. Here we go. So we can go ahead and we can check it. So this is really a simple way to just set up your app and just run it on a B node and on the Swarm network. So I'm hosting it from the gateway right now. As you can see, it could not connect to the node because it's running from the gateway. Normally it should just connect to the node from which it is hosted. So let's go ahead and let's start two nodes locally. One running on port 8082, the other one on 8083. So 1 second. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to try and retrieve the app from the network. Awesome. And now I can send any message, and I see this more as sort of an email system. So it's not for instant messages, it's more for messages that are kind of longer term and that should be, maintained in the network. But here, as you can see here, I've put in the Ethereum address. It calculated the overlay address. I'm using just a small prefix of that overlay address so that nobody can guess who I'm sending this message to. So let's go ahead and write some message. Okay, 1 sec, sorry. All right. And can you, yep. So it's a bit more as an email because it's not instant. When you upload the chunks, it takes some time to actually sync it to the other nodes, and you can this way you can also maintain some sort of. All right, that was the message, and here we go. So the second node received a message. It cannot really tell from where it came from, but we can of course respond. And when we do, all right, so we can have a two-way communication, very easy, very simple this way. Back to you, Michelle. Thanks.
Well, yeah, to both of you, this is amazing. Let me start by saying that. So let me see if I get this right. So you're just sending messages, or you call them like more emails, to Ethereum addresses.
Yeah, that's right. So you can actually then, providing that the owner of that key pair is running the Swarm node and of course this demo, then they can receive those messages. So it's kind of an exciting prospect for the future where we can have inboxes for every Ethereum address. Like actually, sorry, this is a bit off script, but I was actually thinking like we can look on the girly BZZ. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah. So like then, and this is the like leaderboard, I guess, of the GBZZ owners, and then we can actually go whale hunting on here. I found there's send some messages, maybe get some GBZZs.
Yeah.
So just for jokes, we can say send messenger. So there, wherever they are in the world, once that message goes through, then I guess it will arrive in that neighborhood.
Yes, so I just got your message. So you basically doxed me on the phone being a buzz wheel. Again, I should tell the audience that it is girly buzz. I'm girly rich. That was just amazing. To both of you, and as you said, it's maybe not, let's ask Scott later in the AMA to tell all his whistleblowers that they shouldn't use this yet, but at the same time, it's going to be amazing to use this for ourselves, right? So is this is one of the apps that Attila was talking about that we will be dog fooding, I think the term is?
Yeah, I think that it would be definitely. I mean, there's so many things that we can build, and I'm really excited to start to get these JavaScript tools down the pipeline so we can really start just building out on it. So it really is a new paradigm in terms of like developing websites. Not only does it solve this scaling problem, but also everything becomes so much easier. And I think it will become much more simple. So I do think it's going to be a shift change in web development when we finally get this stuff out. And I know that the JavaScript team are chomping at the bit and highly adept. So I think it will happen terrifyingly quickly.
Yeah, because this is maybe it got lost a little bit in the presentation, but Wojtek sneaked in basically how you can bundle your app and deploy it on Swarm. So this in itself could be a demo, I think, right? So it's a bit like how much more work do you think we will need to do before I can just like simply install this on my dApp node, I guess, use.
Oh, well, I mean, basically it's super simple. Really, it's just as you saw, the script is just few lines of code, so it just utilizes the built-in Linux utilities, and you just upload it to the Swarm. It's 34 lines of code, including comments, I think. So very easy.
So where can our viewers find this code? I mean, I think a lot of people would like to run this, on their own computer, or just at least check out the code, how to do this. Where can they find it?
Sure. So right now it's on my repo, but I think we're going to move it very soon to the Ethersphere repo, to some demo repositories. So for the time being, I can definitely direct you there. And we will clean this up further and just show it to the world.
Awesome. Yes, I think I think we covered it, right? I mean, amazing. I was really impressed seeing that. And it was all live in a demo, not even like a recording. So that
Well, that wouldn't be
sound.
edited.
So thank you both, and please join us back at the end of the event for the AMA, because I think there's already some questions for you guys. So thank you so much.
Pleasure as always.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Next up, another demo. They just keep coming. So this is, like I said, this is like the part of the program where you just sit back and relax, and you know, if you are like a developer yourself, this is always like a very relaxed time, because other people are typing code and are showing off what they are doing. So I would like to invite my friend from the other side of the world, Zahur, who's gonna show us, hello Zahur. So Zahur, you're gonna show us the evolution of FairOS and FairDrive. So please go ahead, I can't wait.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. So my name is Zahur. I have been involved in Swarm from late 2016, early 2017. Right now, I'm working on something called as FairOS. These links are where you can find more information about FairOS. One of the layers in FairOS is a decentralized file system layer, which utilizes Swarm and gives some very high level structures on top of Swarm. So I'm going to talk about some very very short thing and then give a demo. So in last alpha, if you attended the event, I had actually demoed a personal data store, logical drive, sharing file with others, and all these kinds of stuff that is built on FairOS DFS. And we also built an example application called FairDrive, which utilizes all these things. And what is coming in beta is mostly about is about indexing data structures. Data structures which can be used by dApps to store, to update, to erase, to search information that is stored in Swarm without any external database or anything like that. Everything is Swarm. It's totally stateless. So what I'm going to actually do at the end after this is to do things like document search, full text search, and then make pods, like public pods, so people can put information what they want to share with the world in the pods, and then can add to a search engine, and which will be available to outside world. It's a pod search engine, not a Google search engine. So I have a demo, a very short demo. It's about the key value store, which is built over Swarm, entirely over Swarm. I'm going to insert about 2 data sets, Udemy and the Ethereum data set. The keys will be the course ID, and then the information about the course. In the case of Ethereum, it will be block number and the information about the block. So let's go to the video where I have this FDS CLI, which, so this is the Udemy data set that I took. So what you do is that you basically create a new KV is the new command. You create a new KV data set called Udemy. You open the database, you load the database using the CSV file. It takes some time to load, and then it shows some information. And then you can basically go and query the information. There are things like get, put, update, delete, seek, iterate, and all these things, very similar to how you would expect in a level DB or something like that. And then I would go with the second data set. This is actually a real one where I am running a Swarm, an FDS, DFS, and this is a CLI, which is a client. You can use any client. It can be a dApp or anything like that, which can use the APIs. These are HTTP APIs. So I'm going to show you this, the ETH blocks. So I'm going to open the data set called ETH blocks. This is a key value store. And then you can search or get anything from the table called ETH blocks. I'm going to actually take you to, so this is the CSV file in which I have inserted from 0 to 500,000. Let's go to somewhere like let's just put some random stuff here and see if we get this, yeah, and see if it's the right one. Let's go to let's go to Etherscan and look at this block, and let's go and see the block hash. The block hash here starts with 9ECA and ends with F487. Let's see if it's the same one. 9ECA and ends with F487. So you got the entire data like this. So you can get any data like this. You can seek, iterate, get next, and all these kinds of stuff can be done over this. I will do one more maybe, or
please, can you share the screen, please? You are not sharing the screen.
I'm not sharing the screen.
No.
My God. Okay, so this is the screen. So can you guys see the screen now? So this is what I did with the key value stores, and you get the information, right? So let's say you do this, and you get the hash 69EB, and let's go and see whether it is the same hash in the Etherscan, and 69EB and ends with 1E96, ends with 1E96. Yes, so this is a very short demo about this. I'm sorry that I forgot to share my screen. Back to Michelle.
Well, yes, it would have been more convenient with the screen, but Zahor, I know that these you recorded some videos of demos, so please feel free to share them again in the Swarm Orange Lounge, so people can check it out for themselves. And as Edu said with DAppNode, I think it's going to be really exciting to see all this running, on distributed nodes. So as always, Zahor, thank you so much, and stick around for the AMA at the end of the event. Thank you, Zahor. Now we are going back to Dan. Dan, are you still here with us?
I am, Michelle. I am.
There you are. So I can see that it's already also getting a little bit darker where you are. This means we are approaching the end of our event. Of course, we're going to still have a chat with Gregor as always, and we will have our Ask Me Anything section. But then I heard that you have to announce something still. So
yes,
please do that.
Indeed, a very exciting but short announcement, Michelle. The Live Long and Prosper grants wave. So we've had some amazing applications, entries so far to the grants. I've just shared my screen here, and we'll share this link over all channels later on. But this is a sneak peek for you guys. So it's another grants call similar to before, 100K DAIs worth of BZZ total, max 10K DAI per grant. And we're looking for experimental and playful apps, dApps, mini apps for FairDrive and layer 2 solutions on Swarm. So that means stuff that's building on the disk. And there's a bunch of ideas for this in the Book of Swarm, but also do feel free to get in touch with us at the Beehive. Links available through the Swarm website, beautiful new Swarm website. And yeah, do feel free to get in touch with us, and we look forward to your applications.
Yes, I'm here. So this was it, right? Do you have more to say? So this was the announcement. So it's basically, it's 10,000 DAI that we're handing out for like good
10,000 DAIs worth of BZZ tokens
per app.
Up to 10K DAI worth of BZZ per application, as in grant application, but I guess also decentralized application. Yeah,
that's I think that's amazing. It will surely empower our ecosystem, I hope.
Yeah.
So will you be sharing that link in the Orange Lounge, and so I'm quite sure a lot of people would want to register for that and participate in it.
Yes, we will. I'll pass that on to the communications team and have them distribute it.
Okay.
As they see fit.
Dan, as always, thank you so much, and stay around for the AMA later, please.
Can't wait.
See you. So with this, we are sort of finalizing our program for today. So traditionally, if you can speak of tradition after 4 times, this is the time where I have a little chat with Gregor, and I think it's not going to be different. So Gregor, are you around? I hope you have been watching the event.
Yes, of course. I wouldn't be anywhere else.
I know, right? So to start off, it's just to check, because Dan mentioned that the theme for us, like sort of internally, the theme we had is live long and prosper. So let's start with doing this. I just want to check if you can.
Oh, I'm slow at that, but yeah, it's my childhood dream. I'm doing it, kind of.
Oh, you're doing it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm kinda.
Okay,
but
so
you kick ass. You kick ass.
Thank you.
You do it like it's done. I think you have some Vulcan blood in you, maybe.
Who knows? I learned it because I have an older brother, and he teased me with it, right? So we were watching Star Trek as kids, and then he came to me, like they put it like in my face, and so I had to learn it, of course, to be able to compete with him. So we did all these things. Anyway,
awesome.
So
maybe we should then also provide some context to why we have the legal.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you.
Awesome.
Why did we choose this Vulcan sentence to be like the sort of the flavor, let's say, of the event?
So there are several reasons, and kind of this phrase kind of summed it up, kind of connected all these threads. As you mentioned, today is the 4th event, and it's the last biggest major milestone before the 1.0 launch. And thematically, we had also this event kind of going along the topic of plur, of peace, love, unity, respect, the values that kind of also guide us in doing this. And today, as we said, it's all about respect. It's all about symbolizing. This was the phrase when in the story, humanity leaped to the new level of technology and awareness, consequentially, and it marked, this new future. So at the same time, it is a reflection of respect. It's like the biggest respect that, in a way, we should show, and as humans, is respect for life, I guess. So. So it kind of all ties into the exciting times we're here, and yeah, it's the end of a series. Yeah,
it's the end of what?
Of a conceptual event series. We now completed the plur. Here, maybe what we can also address is, so those who have been throughout on the events, those also know about the NFT tokens. So we are going to issue them there, and it's going to be a nice collection of Swarm digital memorabilia that maybe unlocks some special orders in the future. Okay. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe. Are you announcing something here?
No.
Okay.
I mean, haven't we announced many things today? It's like, it's really exciting to see.
I want to ask you this. Yeah. Well, this is like, stop like, reading my mind and my questions. So that was one of the things I wanted to ask you. What did you think was like, at what point in this event did you think like, this is amazing?
It's hard to tell, for me the amazing part in the event is also, even if it sounds maybe weird, it's like a good DJ set, because it kept on, like every song was just adding more towards towards it and completing like this wholesome experience. So I'm amazed by zero leak comps that we spoke about it. I do want to have that ringtone, the buzz tone. I'm totally in off. I gotta show this, my Raspberry Pi. So and this I unscrewed also the case. This, yeah, exactly. This one is a power horse. This can store up to, I would have it fully expanded up to 8 terabytes. But you can even have, like, I find this absolutely mind-blowing. I can run on a Raspberry Pi below 100 euros. I can be part of Swarm. I can be part of this empowerment of digital freedom. So this year for Christmas, I'm giving only Raspberry Pis. Only.
I hope I'm on your list. So
I am even considering a tattoo. Be an Odler. Hashtag be an Odler. No, this I'm joking. I'm not a fan of tattoos, but definitely we should be Odlers.
Maybe just make some sticky tattoos that we can send with your presents at Christmas. Yes. But yes, let's maybe, because we are totally going, in a weird direction with this conversation as always. So I want to also get some information from you, especially for our audience. What will happen? As you said, like, this is the last event before we will go live on mainnet, right? So what will happen between now and the moment that we will go on mainnet, and when do you think this will be?
So we expect, as we've been communicating throughout the events, that we go 1.0, so to speak, end of Q1 next year. There are still a bit of unknown factors, so this might be varying, but the story up to now is basically giving us confidence that yeah, it will happen. But as part of this, what we also need to know is we need to look at the bigger picture, and the bigger picture, in a sense, is we are not only releasing B client 1.0. We are speaking here about Swarm 1.0, and this is, while B client is the most essential and crucial part of the network, of course, until there are more clients, then it will be a reference client. But launching Swarm properly also means developer support and community. It means also providing a personal data store for the end user. When Ethereum launched, we all had the Mist wallet and testing out, sending ethers and stuff around. And it means also an ecosystem. And with the ecosystem, we don't mean necessarily the size of the ecosystem, but connectedness, sharing the same same, or let's say similar mindset. So when we break down this, when you say what's going to happen, B 1.0 is going to happen. We saw JavaScript team announcing, it's like there's going to be more tooling. And we also want to grow the team to be able to give like better support to developers. Then outside of Swarm also needs to step up in ecosystem efforts such as FairDrive, enabling. And here, I would say we need to even look beyond Swarm. End users, we need to think about end users and how we provide them biggest value, how we create the biggest social impact, how we empower digital freedom by, creating unstoppable data, making data unstoppable. So these are like some of the efforts. We last event we presented also enterprise support. So all these things we hope will kind of come together, and it will kick off like this really rich and diverse, essentially new world. Yeah, it's exciting times ahead. Yeah.
You never disappoint, eh? It's amazing. I'm getting so excited hearing you talk about it.
Yes, it is. If you think about like how long, it's also this been in the making, and how close we are getting. It's hard not to be excited.
Well, it's actually to me personally, it's even hard to believe, because as you said, like I for one, I mean, I'm old already in this space, but I I probably have been dreaming about this for like 20 years, I think.
Yes.
Maybe even longer, right? Like, and there was always something that was not possible, right? There was always this one thing where we would just run into a wall, you know, being it like in the old days, being
Yes.
it with BitTorrent, where you just knew that like the Cedar Leecher thing was not balanced, and you know you could just see like, no, too many people are opportunists, so they are scamming, you know, sort of scamming the system.
And you know, I also kind of see a new wave emerging in this sense. It's like with all the AI apps and services, I see on a daily basis new cool AI services coming up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't subscribe to them because the price that we pay in this old paradigm, you know, it's like it's really like, you know, like we are exchanging our freedom for this new shiny thing.
I think
So
I think it was Edu in his presentation who no, who was this who was talking about the Faustian deal? Oh, it was Danny, right? Danny said like, we basically make a Faustian, we're basically selling our soul to the devil. I think that's what he meant by that. To have free apps. I want to just improvise a little bit here. It's probably the most stupid thing you can do at an event. But Scott, if you are still here, could you you know, show yourself and join the conversation? I don't know if he's still
yes.
around. Oh, he is. Scott. Okay, so Scott, we had this wonderful preparation talk yesterday, you know, where we in a way wanted to give you like updates and wanted to inform you on what the team is doing. And I wanted to ask you, like, you as an outsider, I mean, you're not an outsider to this ecosystem, of course, but you're not like in the core Swarm team. What did you see? What did you see today?
Well, let's see. I guess one of the things I'm really excited about is this communications platform, the PSS thing. That's super cool. Like, I guess I'm just thinking about I'm thinking about all the different ways of communicating and how to send data, like things that can be built on top of this. Also tools that can be built for journalists. That's one of the things that's like especially important to me. Like here in the US right now, we're actually seeing a resurgence of censorship. And it's been very interesting to kind of watch the way that I don't know if it's government censorship or voluntary, but one of the things that is very noticeable is that there's been almost no coverage of the Julian Assange extradition trial.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes.
Yeah, and it's very, very concerning to me, you know. So I don't know, like one of the things that a lot of people in my circles have been discussing is like, well, now that this isn't happening, and like even with more, I guess, left-leaning publications like, you know, like BuzzFeed or Huffington Post or Vice, like they're not even covering the extradition trial at all. So there's this like kind of like voluntary cancellation, so to say, and of Assange. And on top of that, there was a police shooting of a man named Walter Wallace Jr. here in my city, actually in my neighborhood, not too long ago. And the story wound up only being a local story, and it didn't really go beyond. It was basically Walter Wallace was mentally he had some psychological problems, and there was a mental health call by his mother. They called the police saying that there was a problem, and the police showed up, and they shot him 10 times, like on a mental health call.
Yeah.
And this story didn't really go anywhere. And so while there was very much of like a lot of coverage over the past few years of I guess things that are critical of the current system, it seems as if there's very much of a clampdown happening, at least here I observe it in the United States. And so I'm seeing it, I think it's very important to actually be able to have a repository for information that otherwise would be censored. Years ago, I used to do this thing called the Lost Film Fest. It's actually how I met a few of the other attendees. It was a traveling, I guess, video presentation program where I would show footage that would otherwise be censored and wouldn't be available readily. And so I traveled around with a Beamer and a DVD player. So this is in the early 2000s, late 1990s, and so because we didn't have things like YouTube, we didn't have these types of things, like the way we were relying on this underground network in order to do this. So it was basically like a sneaker net of video. And now that I guess I'm seeing so much emphasis by state actors and corporations, all these different types of institutions of, of control, kind of putting their foot down, I think it's really important to have tools to be able to continue to share information. So I wanted to really thank you guys for doing this, and I wanted to really congratulate you for the amount of work that was put in. I'd had some idea because like Gregor and I have been talking for the past several years, and I would hear hints about how much there was, and I'm amazed, really. Like, I sat through the whole presentation, and I'm just really inspired. I hope you guys will be presenting at CCC, and maybe some of the other hacker hacker events over the coming years. Yeah, and I really would like. One of the things I really like is that this has a lot of crossover between the kind of like hacker infosec community and also the crypto community. That it's not just about cryptocurrency; it's really a practical application of this technology that is going to be very, very useful. So that's what I saw today, and I wanted to really thank you guys for putting in all the work. It's a beautiful thing that you guys are building, and I feel really touched that you invited me to be part of it.
Well, Scott, thank you so much. I think I can speak for a lot of people that you have been an inspirational example of what cypherpunk and art, and if you combine all that, what someone can do with all these ideas. So Scott, maybe you can just say thank you to the entire team, because I want to invite everybody to share the stage and to enable your cameras. Maybe just leave your audio muted for a second. So Scott, like you can see, you will see a selection of the team. I don't know how many. Oh God, it keeps growing and growing and growing. But all these people, yes, more please. So yeah, all these people are directly or indirectly working with our forest swarm. It's a whole lot of males. That's a side effect of this technology, I'm afraid. So yes, let's dive into the. Scott, is there anything you want to ask the team?
Yes, and first I wanted to just say thank you to every one of you for working on this. I mean, sometimes, I guess sometimes we feel like our work is invisible. This is a time where I want to acknowledge as a person who has not been a part of the core development. I'm just kind of an outsider. I'm a hobbyist technologist. I love this kind of stuff. I just want to say that this is really very inspiring. A lot of the time in tech, we develop things that might not see the light of day because it's, there aren't really practical applications beyond just kind of curiosity. But this is a thing that has been put together in such a comprehensive way, like with so many things that have been thought through and with so much deliberation. And I wanted to thank you for being able to cooperate, because this is a huge set of tasks, a huge complex set of tasks. And in order to present something like this in a very simple to understand way, it's a huge challenge. And yeah, I can't thank you enough for doing it. And I'm really looking forward to using like many of the apps and dApps that are built upon this technology, especially the communications tools. One thing I wanted to say, I'm currently working on a project, like one of my own projects is a parametrically designed, programmatically creatable set of machines, like open source hardware machines, that are going to be expressed as non-fungible tokens, like I guess things like ERC 1155, like sets of assets. And I'm thinking about how the swarm technology could be used in order to host tools that can bypass a lot of the monopoly by huge corporations on machines. For example, I'm thinking about tools like open source ecology is a project that makes universal open source hardware tools like tractors and whatnot. And I'm thinking about how there's been a monopoly by the big companies like John Deere and like all the to Kubota, like on these big pieces of equipment. And I think about how amazing it would be to actually like have readily accessible repositories of sets of files for pieces of hardware that could be built in the bush, built somewhere using scrap materials or what people have laying around, rather than having to buy the name brand. And so I guess that's one of the things I would like to see come out of this, is maybe a wiki repository of helpful machines that take into account the ecological impact of machines. So yeah.
Amazing. I'm quite sure that Zahor's Fair Drive will be able to handle all these plans and technical drawings, etc. We definitely are going to need a key value store for that. Scott, I want to thank you again for being here. Stick around, but I would like to continue with all the questions that people have been asking. So, this one is definitely for Daniel, please unmute, because I'm going to ask you a question that I think you want to answer. What Bob Jiang asks, what's the main difference between Swarm and IPFS?
So first of all, to get it out of the way, let me just state firmly that we are not in an antagonistic position to each other. So we're both in the content address distributed storage space, and we are both attempting to rescue humanity from this Web 2.0 large data centers run by big corporations kind of state. And these two projects are in a way complementary. So the main difference is the focus of the task, the subtask of the content address storage. So IPFS primarily concerns itself by finding and delivering content. It doesn't care where and how it is stored. And in fact, if you fire up an IPFS client and upload some files on it, they will not leave your computer. They will just be announced on IPFS that they are to be found on your computer from where everybody can efficiently download it. Whereas Swarm focuses on the other side on where and how to store data. That is the core competency of Swarm. So in the best case future, when both projects succeed, it is entirely possible, and we have talked about this with Juan multiple times, that all Swarm content will be simply accessible through an IPFS address space. There's nothing in the architecture of either project to prevent such a deep collaboration. It is just that both of us currently are wary of depending on the other project critically. So we have our own distribution layer just because we didn't want to risk that IPFS is not ready on time. And similarly, IPFS also has its spinning and replicating stuff just because they didn't want to critically depend on Swarm. But in the best case scenario, these two projects will both thrive and collaborate. And actually, we were among the first to congratulate IPFS on the successful pipeline launch.
That's very concise. Thank you so much, Daniel, for that. Someone is asking, what is Scott's last name? It is Bybin. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Yes, Bybin, like Leipzig. Yeah, you told me. So yeah, that was just a silly question, of course. I mean, I'm scrolling to all these questions. Oh, this is an interesting one, I think. Oh, Danny, you already answered it, but I'll ask, who can I ask? Well, Gregor, maybe. Gregor? Oh,
I'm here looking at the questions, actually, yes.
Yeah,
By
so
the way.
it's an interesting question. It's like Danny gave the example of a wiki that can, for instance, be instantly forked. The user interface and the whole application will still be there, but like the content of the wiki will be, forked. And someone, Adam Euler, is asking, won't this help or make the society be divided more like polarization? I think he means by that, because we are already we have the issue of not finding common ground because people see different facts, so we don't agree on reality anymore. So yeah, do you think that Swarm will contribute to that it will even get more polarized?
It's a very, very good question, and the most honest answer in this way would be that we don't know. We do know, everybody here, we joined Swarm and we are working on Swarm because we don't want just to solve a technological challenge, but we want to see positive social impact. So in this regard, for us, it is important that we support the proper initiatives, that we kind of try to start initiatives that avoid mistakes done with the first web, so to speak. Yes, this is maybe the most general answer I can give. It's here. The tool itself is, I would say, neutral, but how we shape the social part will be key. I would also imagine that Dani has here also an answer ready that takes an approach from a bit different perspective. So I would pass the baton to Dani now.
Yeah, Dani, can you maybe shortly answer?
Sure. So I have actually tied my answer to the question, but the short answer from me, and I'm speaking for myself here, not the project, that I firmly believe that polarization and enmity in society is not because of the abundance of admissible opinions, but on the contrary, it's because people end up in these bubbles, these information bubbles, when they are not exposed to other opinions and other arguments. And I think that if Swarm manages to expose people to opinions and arguments outside of their bubble, it will actually help with de-escalating polarization and division. And I think that if you are exposed to the best arguments, the unfiltered arguments of your opponents, then you can better make up your mind, and maybe you too can arrive at some synthesis. Because sometimes it's the largest bubble that is wrong. It's not necessarily true that the biggest bubble is always right. So that
I would totally second this. So
Okay.
Dani, it's not just European. If I may add something here, it's also that. No, I lost it. I forgot.
That's not a problem because we have many more speakers.
No, I got it back. Sorry,
Oh,
I was
God.
yeah.
Yes.
So what I wanted to mention is here the social parties, you know, and I think this we need to also emphasize here is that we also as users of in the digital or participants in the digital world, we need to learn some of the new things. You know, when people get ATM card, they need to learn do not give out the PIN code. And some of also this behavior when we see with the information, digital reality has changed, and we also just on the social level need to adapt to this.
I would like to, Igor, you're here, right? So, I mean, most people won't know, but we have sort of a resident international artist who is, you know, with us in this project. And, you know, he makes amazing art pieces, and he's also responsible for like the intro and outro animations and you know, like visuals that you have been seeing coming from Swarm. But Igor, I know you are doing like a lot of installations and artwork just around this theme, right? Like are people agreeing on facts, and even are people agreeing on their history and stuff like that? So could you chime in on that like thought?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what what the question is, but
so the question was like if we all can like just fork away, you know, like realities, and like, you know, we can fork away consensus. Won't this, you know, add to the polarization that we already see? Like everybody has their own facts and opinions, and it seems like, you know, you can just follow your own reality, and therefore you start, you know, to be in fights with other people because they, you know, we just don't agree on reality anymore.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, this topic is widely discussed in the artistic community as well, and an artistic community as an academic community as well, and like research artists like myself have been involved in this for a long while. I mean, I think it's I do definitely agree with Danny's words on these kind of on the ideas of you know, sort of a consensus, or like being exposed to uncensored information is definitely a solution. I don't think that is, you know, kind of like a road to the future of utopia. I think we will face some other kind of new difficulties, but isn't it basically a way in which, you know, technology evolves and develops? You know, we create new problems, we solve those problems. By solving those problems, we create new problems again, and then we solve. So perhaps transition from Web 1.0 to Web 1.2 and Web 1.3 are very you know, natural processes in a way. I believe that we certainly are in like on the routes, you know, to get there, where it's to this kind of future where perhaps things are more fair, where we are exposed to more opinion, where authority is perhaps less defined by capital or, you know, some certain kind of patent or other forms of power, right? And I believe from that perspective, Swarm may and will enable an incredible new opportunities. What do we do with them? We'll have to see. I believe I would like to remain critical still, but it does look utopian on many ends, and I'm absolutely fascinated to be part of this project.
Thank you, Egor. It's always interesting to hear your opinion, like coming from, you know, a different world, you know, sort of. I know you have like 1 foot in technology and 1 foot in arts and communications. So, you know, thank you for that. The next question, Rinke, if we can hear once again from you. I think this is a very good question and should be addressed. You already wrote a response in the you know, the Q&A, but this question is, it's really hard to bootstrap a storage network. I would say, you know, like it's really hard to bootstrap any kind of network where you want to have, you know, a network effect. Beliefs, that's good. Eh? Beliefs alone won't help. Real economic incentives would be required. So can you maybe like shortly, you know, touch on that topic again, if you're up to it?
I mean, I think this refers to the beginning of my presentation, where I was mostly talking about, you know, I need you to join us on this journey to believe that it's going to work out. And sure, real economic incentives are in the end what we need. And that is also what I presented, and that's also what we already have, partly in Swarm. But apart from that, I think that, right now in the early stage, in order to decide, first of all, to join us in this journey, you need to know how these incentives work, and you need to know, how this flywheel of incentives will come into motion and stay in motion. And in the end, in the end, it really, of course, matters what are the true economic incentives and how this is going to empower the people. But before we are at the time, you need to understand the theory, and you need to be convinced for yourself that it's going to work out. I mean, like, maybe we can drop something here, because we've been talking about something, but
well, I wouldn't do any like unexpected announcements in this forum. I think it's like probably better to prepare such things and then, announce them in a very concise and comprehensible way. So thank you, Rinke, so much.
I cannot resist, I need to tell. There might be a custom Swarm Raspberry Pi case.
Oh, okay, Gregor, then you totally overruled this. I tried to censor this is what happens when you try to censor people in a decentralized storage network. So Gregor, please go ahead and do your announcement.
This. There might be a custom Swarm Raspberry Pi case. Isn't that exciting? Christmas is coming. Run your own dep node, digital freedom. Come on.
Yes,
custom Swarm Raspberry Pi case.
I'm just gonna create like a Christmas tree from dApp nodes and Raspberry Pis, and like the wires will be like the structure of my Christmas tree. So
3D printed one.
Sorry?
You should 3D print the box.
Yes, exactly.
We're on it already. We're on it.
Excellent.
I find it very funny and exciting that you kind of technology specialists and geniuses are so happy with a custom printed 3D case. That's amazing. I guess it represents like the physical appearance of what Swarm B is. It's fun to hold it in your hands, I think.
Yes.
Zahor, a question for you.
And it
Will
would be
you
really
please
cool.
do your demo again and then upload it so we can share it on Twitter?
Why don't you just make the STL file of the case and create an NFT out of it?
Scott, I think you need to be in touch with Igor. And I mean, you guys should like totally hook up and have a date together, I think. I think you can find each other in the Orange Lounge or in this, we have a backstage channel where you definitely are both in. I think you're gonna become good friends and create some exciting stuff. Okay, so I'm trying to get Zahor.
Yes. Video. There are videos about FairOS in the FairOS repository README that I have put there in the Fair Data Society GitHub. I have put the links in the Orange Lounge. People who want to look at the entire this thing can have a look at all 5 videos. There are like 5 videos which explains a lot of things about FairOS. So yeah, please feel free.
Okay, someone asked, how long will this event last? Well, I would answer 5 more minutes. So what else do we have in all these questions? Oh my God, it's like, yeah, today is asking for sample code. So I think we already answered this, like Dan, Wojtek, Attila, please do go ahead and share all this wonderful code in the Orange Lounge so people can get access to that and play around with it. What else is here? I think that's basically it. If someone still wants to say something, can you please raise your hand? Rinke, do you want to say something?
I have a question to Janos.
Okay, it's not an announcement, right?
No, it's not an announcement. It's just a question because I was also a participant at this event. You were explaining Clef, Janos, but like, what is Clef and why would I like to use that?
Oh yeah, I just briefly mentioned it. So Clef is actually the project in Go Ethereum codebase. So it's It's one of the binaries built from the same repository as get is built, and it is an external signer. And what that means is that it manages your keys that you have value in terms of Ether of you hold your Ethereum keys by it, and its main purpose is to make this key storage secure and to reduce the attack surface, because that application will not be exposed to any network interfaces. So bnode or any other software can communicate securely or locally only, and have this have your keys more secure. Yeah, I see Daniel raising a hand.
Yeah, so I was there when the Clef application was born. So the problem that it addressed is that a complex piece of software like Get was having direct access on the file system to the private keys of the users, and that presented a unknown and unknowable risk of somehow hacking the Get node and thereby leaking the private key of the user. And it was decided to separate out Clef so that Get only deals with public keys and it doesn't have access to any of the private keys of the user. And it also provides an abstraction layer between the keys and possible storage devices. So it can be your own, the same hard drive on the same computer, but it can also be a hardware key. And through Clef, you can basically use any means of signing, and also Diffie-Hellman later so any operation that needs to be done with your private key can be done no matter how your private key is actually stored through the standardized interface provided by Clef.
Thank you so much, Danny. Elad, I saw you, sort of looking, how do you say this? Like you were making like head movements that suggest that you have an opinion on this. Would you like to share that? Now you're making head movements that say that you don't have an opinion on this. Okay. Anyway, so Elad, do you want to add something to this? You're muted, by the way, if you want to speak. Yes.
No, I don't have an opinion on this. I don't know why you were thinking I do. But.
It happens, sometimes I read body language totally incorrectly. Sometimes I get like a slap in the face, even if I do it really wrong. So sorry for that. I think we are at the end of our wonderful event. It is really exciting for me to end this, because I know that the next time we see each other, and when I open up my camera to start off the next event, we will actually be on mainnet. Even saying it makes me basically very nervous, because I know that this is a very hard job that you all have been doing. As I said to Attila, I think we are trying to do the impossible, yet all you guys believe that it is possible. And that gives me great confidence that we're gonna have a way better future than what we have seen the last couple of years. So, going into the holidays and all, I truly want to wish you all so much luck and inspiration and peace, love, unity, and respect. And I'm very much looking forward to the next event, because you will shine. I'm quite sure of that. So thank you all. Oh, wait a minute. I made a list for this because I find it so important. I want to thank from the bottom of my heart, because you made this event just perfect. Egor, you did an amazing job. Grace, you did an amazing job coaching the speakers. I think it was really good for them, because it's I think they're just proud of themselves for expressing their ideas. Miha, thank you for being a stage manager and reminding some people that they have to share their screen. Jasper, thank you so much for all the project management you have been doing. Antonios, thank you so much for helping us out with AV. And of course, all the people that are watching, thank you so much for supporting this project and be in this with us together, because in the end, we are all Swarm. I leave it with that. Thank you so much and bye-bye.
In yon vast field of